I think that by you guys understanding this, it's going to help the majority of people. You don't have to know a lot, but you can make a lot more than the average person by understanding some of these basics. So, my name's Donovan Jolly. I own and operate the YouTube channel DIY Investing. I've been doing YouTube since July 3rd, 2018, crypto only. I've been in crypto since 2016, started investing over there. This is my YouTube channel. If you do recognize me, you probably know me from the insufferable faces. That's my staple. But I was born and raised in Vernal, Utah, so just a little ways away from here. I came from a really good family, but had a lot of drug addiction problems. Had a lot of issues with, getting in trouble, doing a lot of the bad things in life. And so I ended up turning 17 in a psych ward, and then I turned 18 in jail. And so I was kind of going through all of this crap in my life, not really knowing what I'm doing, didn't know where to go, didn't have any sort of real direction. And at that point, I was looking for something. I needed something. I needed an opportunity. I needed a way out so I could, direct this energy and, create something valuable. And so I started learning crypto at 18. I got out of detention, and then I was out for like a week, and I happened to meet a guy that knew Bitcoin. Showed me the charts, explained how the cycles work, how everything. Well, at the time, this was early 2016, so Bitcoin was be your own bank, anti-government. It was a libertarian movement, really around everybody being their own sort of person and having their own sovereignty through crypto. And so I started to dive into this, learn a little bit more, hang out with my friend every day, and he started to break things down. He showed me these charts and how Bitcoin goes through these big cycles, these big booms and bust periods, and how if you time the cycles, you can actually make a lot of money. You don't have to know the exact top, you don't have to know the exact bottom, but generally crypto goes up so fast and so hard that you don't have to be perfect one way or another. You can get in and still make financial fortune just by going through it. So at that point, I bought my first Bitcoin at $450. It was right at the beginning of that 2017 bull run, and I started to get hooked. I knew all about crypto, knew how fun it was, and now I'd finally gotten a little bit of a piece for myself. And then you start to see how the blockchain works, how it's really solves so many of the key issues inside of our everyday life, and that's really why I saw the value. And so then I started, I helped many students make 5, 6, and 7+ figures in the markets. A lot of different testimonials on my website and things from people, helping them find different altcoins early on, and just be positioned early into cycles, because that's the biggest thing. If you're in early to a cycle, you have a position ready, and you understand how the cycles work, you can make a truly life-changing amount of money, and you don't have to have anything to start. Like, I truly had nothing. I was living in my grandma's basement, didn't have a car, didn't have a driver's license, and I was still able to earn 7 figures within just a few years. So truly anybody can do the same thing. And then, in the last cycle, I was also able to pay off my mom's house and do a lot of really good things for my family, which was, honestly my ultimate goal for getting into crypto. I wanted money to help my family, take care of my friends, take care of myself, obviously, and I don't think there's a better way of being able to do that, especially if you're starting with just a small amount. All glory to God, because there was 2 defining moments in my life where everything was falling apart. When I was in a psych ward, when I had nothing going for me, I didn't have any direction, everything was falling apart. I prayed, and I got everything I ever wanted, and it was a week after I prayed that I found Bitcoin and found the friend that showed me all this, taught me trading, taught me how to start a YouTube channel. And every single time there was another hurdle in my life, there was 2 defining moments where I prayed, and every single thing in my life has came true exactly as I asked, exactly as I wanted. And I truly believe that the same can be said for every single person here. If you truly want that, if, whatever you focus on in your heart, whatever you focus on in your mind, I think that it will work out if you just choose to continue to build towards that goal. My top crypto investing rules. These are really important because a lot of people are going to give you crappy advice. Most people don't make money in crypto, and that's just the truth. Most people go through multiple cycles before they start making money, and I'm a prime example of that. Only invest what you can afford to lose. That's prime number 1 thing. You don't go investing your rent money. You don't go investing your kids' college funds. You don't go investing this and that. It's only what you can risk. If you can't risk something, you shouldn't be investing, because most likely you're going to get into crypto and you're going to lose money. That's inevitable. That's everybody's first experience, is probably getting liquidated or doing something stupid. I know that I bought Bitcoin at $450 and I got liquidated like 4 weeks later. So realistically, it's really hard if you don't already understand that whatever you put in could be gone tomorrow, and it might not even be your own fault. You know, like people get hacked, people send money to the wrong address. I've done all of those things, so you know, it really is just like your own user error at that point. You don't make profit unless you sell. Unrealized gains are not gains. You only make your profit once you hit that sell button, once that money is in your wallet and you move that money to your bank account. Unrealized gain, the number on the screen, you know, you buy $1,000 here and it's worth $10,000 here. Until you sell that, it's not worth $10,000. It's just your position of the same amount of coins you've always held. Cryptos go up hundreds and thousands of percent in ROI. They go down 99+%. So if you're not somebody willing to take profits, you're not going to make any profit. Always remember, everyone has their own best interests in mind. If it's a founder, if it's your friend, an influencer, at the end of the day, everybody's here to make money. And so you have to remember that not everybody's going to tell you exactly what they're doing. They might tell you one thing and they might do the opposite, which happens all the time. The more that you accept that you aren't going to be the one knowing everything, that somebody else has more information than you, the more you're going to be able to profit, because you're not going to put yourself in the same sort of situations that the average person does. So just be aware of those things. Learn and understand the emotional psychology of market cycles. Humans are emotional creatures. The reason the prices move is because humans are investing in them. The reason these charts repeat in these cycles is because it's an emotional cycle. So by you understanding the emotional psychology, which I'll explain later with charts, you're going to have a much deeper perspective on what the average person looks like. When you see red flags, Elon Musk going on Saturday Night Live shilling Dogecoin, those sort of things. These are sort of red flags that you have to see, but also by understanding the emotional psychology of yourself, it allows you to have a deeper idea of the market. Because if you can flip your own psychology and you can be buying when other people are fearful and you can be selling when other people are greedy, that you have to reverse your psychology if you're ever going to make profit in these markets. Learn and understand 4-year cycles. We'll get into that. Get your money off chain or get your money on chain and off centralized exchanges. This is key. You have to have a hardware wallet. You definitely need to back your software wallets with a hardware wallet. If you use MetaMask, if you use Ravi Wallet, any of these, you have to be sure to be safe, because if you're not, I got hacked. I lost $65,000 at the end of 2022 at the very bottom. Bought Solana at $12, bought a whole bunch of stuff, was diversifying my cash. All of that was gone. That $10,000 in and of itself today is worth like 250 grand. Maybe not now that Solana's down, but regardless, it's worth it. I mean, a hardware wallet's $120, $150. Just go buy one and plug it in. But if you're keeping your money on chain, you are basically saving yourself from all of the FTXs in the world, all of the Terra Lunas and the Voyager, Celsius, all of these centralized entities. Even though Luna wasn't a centralized entity, they kind of still were. All of these are, ultimate ways that you could lose your money, and you can make millions of dollars. The exchange loans out your money, and you don't know where that is, and you don't actually have anything. So it's better off that you trust yourself. You're your own bank. You get your money off of the exchanges, and you put it onto a wallet that you can trust. You keep a wallet that you only ever just leave money on, and then you have another one that you sign transactions with. You got to be really safe with this stuff. Once again, hardware wallet. And then humble yourself, or the market will do it for you. You aren't that smart, you got lucky. And this is the case for me. I got into the markets, they just start exploding and going up. It's really easy to think that you're smart, a lot smarter than you actually are. Crypto can prove you right, and you can also enforce bad habits by thinking that what you did was a good thing. So buying more than you can afford to lose, it goes up. Well, I'm going to go with the whole position now, and then you lose it all. So you have to understand that there's aspects of this that it's a very deep process, and it's not black and white. Not everybody's going to make money, but if you at least keep yourself humble and understand that I could lose all my money tomorrow, I'm not actually as good as I think I am, it's going to allow you to at least realize that you can always learn more, you can always adapt and grow. And at that point, if you make a mistake, if you have the idea of how can I learn from this and how can I grow, you're always going to make the right decision long term. And once again, it only takes one bad trade to lose it all. So, you might make 10 good trades doing the wrong thing. You do that one wrong thing again, you lose all of the money you just made. So, those are important things to keep in mind. Now, this is what I think is the most important part of this entire presentation, is the market cycles, because crypto is cyclical. It runs on cycles. It's programmed through Bitcoin based off the Bitcoin halvings every 4 years. the mining reward gets cut in half, so the scarcity goes up. What we end up seeing is the prices of Bitcoin skyrocket as a result. So what is a market cycle? Market cycles are a pattern that form based off human emotion and money entering and leaving an asset class. And this is the universal pattern that they'll make. They'll make a big parabolic rise, they'll crash just as quick as they came up, and then they'll kind of round out, drop 80, 90%, nobody thinks about it, and then they'll start over all over again. And so by timing the cycles, it allows you to get in and get out at the right opportune times. It allows you to understand the long-term development that's taking place, because every cycle follows the same rules of events. The humans trading them make the same decisions. You see the same silly crap that pops up every single time. Cycles can trend inside of different time frames. All cycles sync to time, liquidity, and economic pressures. All cycles since the beginning of time have always basically gone up or down based off of the time frames. There's 100-year cycles, there's 50-year cycles, and there's 4-year cycles with Bitcoin. And there's multitudes inside of that. But you understanding some of these basics, you don't have to draw 50 things on the chart. You don't have to pay for this course. You don't have to know all of these, extreme ways to profit with technical analysis. You can literally just understand the psychology, see the cycle playing out from a big picture, and you can get in and out in a much better way that you don't have to overcomplicate things. Smart money understands how to time cycles and gauge sentiment for taking profit. What we see every single bull market and bear market is the same rule of events. When the bear market's here, everything's dead, everything's crashing, everybody's losing money, everybody's angry. Why did the government allow this to happen? Whatever they can blame, they're always blaming everything. And then in the bull market, everybody's a genius. Look how much money I just made. I just got my friend into this and he's a millionaire now. So we always see the same sort of things, but if you understand when to take profit when things are greedy, when you see people, oh man, I just put $10,000 long on Dogecoin or something. You see these sort of same rules play out universally, and it always leads to either a topping point or a bottoming point. And just being able to see that within yourself gives you a strategic advantage over everybody else in the market. This is the valuation of a market cycle, this chart. Basically, what you have is, it's kind of broken down in segments. You have the stealth phase, which is the very beginning of where really the smart money gets in. You could look at that as basically being like 2008 to like 2012 Bitcoin. That would have been when the only people using it were people that were nerds and knew how to actually operate, technology. And so you were either a drug dealer or a nerd back in those days. So at that point, it was hard to actually get into this stuff. Nobody really knew what it was. And that was where the money was made. Now, if you look at where we're at today, I would argue we're inside of the institutional investor point, where we just saw BlackRock, Fidelity, all of these major institutional banks and corporations are on board. We have futures now. There's so many different ways for money to come into the market. And so realistically, from everything I know, from all the thousands of dollars I've paid for courses to be able to learn this type of stuff, the one thing I can say is universally, when the institutions come in, it's not at the point necessarily that we're at the top, but it's not at the beginning either. The institutions kind of get in at around the middle point, right before everything takes off. Because institutions, the only way that institutions can make money is if they have exit liquidity to sell into. So, why does this chart make such a huge move into the blow-off phase? Well, it's because retail investors need exit liquidity. They have to shill to the average retail investor so that they can drive enough price to actually take profit. So I do believe that that's what this cycle is. We are into the institutional cycle. I don't think it's going to differ very much from prior cycles, other than it's going to be more volatile as far as more upside potential. And probably the dips will be a little bit smaller because there's more people eager to buy. Now that they have the backing of BlackRock, they own over $100 million worth of Bitcoin now. These guys are moving in and they're accumulating up everything that we have. And the supply of Bitcoin's already so small, we're going to see another supply shock. This time it's going to be bigger because in the other cycles, we didn't really have much retail adoption, didn't have much going on. There'd be little waves of retail. This time you're going to have all the mainstream news outlets shill it. You're going to have every one of these little cabal people, shill it inside of their inner groups. And it's going to become a huge public thing. And so I have a lot of confidence that this cycle is going to be the biggest one to be a part of, and you're going to make the most profit if you are prepared and you understand some of these things. This is the next most important part, because this is the emotional psychology of the market cycle. This is the emotions that the average investor is going to feel when you're trading the market. And by understanding this, I've made more money than anything in the world. I've known when to get out of markets, When I'm skeptical about something, I can look at how I'm feeling personally, I can see how other people are feeling, and I can look at this chart, and it gives me an idea as far as the emotional psychology. So every cycle since the beginning of time will make some type of variance of this pattern. Human emotion is what drives price. Human emotion can be charted through price because humans are emotional creatures. By understanding the psychology of human emotions experienced when investing, it gives ourselves a much deeper perspective on the market. One of the few ways to time the market cycle is to understand the sentiment of the market is giving off. This chart shows the universal repetition of the emotions experienced. So, at the very beginning of every cycle, you have what's known as the disbelief phase. This is where you first start uptrending, but it's not really doing anything. We're still below prior all-time highs, and nobody really thinks that it's serious or legit. That's why it's known as the disbelief. They look at it as a sucker's rally. It's not really anything to take serious. Then you go into hope when the market starts breaking out. People get a little bit more, hopeful about things. Maybe this is real. Maybe we can actually see this take out. Then it goes up higher and you start getting into the more parabolic part of the cycle with optimism. This actually is real. I think that this is serious. Then you get into belief. Well, everybody's making money. It's time for me to go heavier. I'm going to sell my house. I got this extra property. I'm going to put it into the market. Then you go into thrill. Once they've made profit off of that, now they've been, now they have confirmation that they were right all along. Then you go into euphoria, and this is the blow off top. This is every single Bitcoin cycle, Ethereum, every altcoin ever has these. And then you start the inverse of this. Instead of positive emotions on the way up, as the green candles are going up, people are now losing money, and the people that were losing money were the ones over leveraged at the top, the ones that were feeling all of these emotions as they went up. So as the market goes down, you see the inverse of that, complacency. Well, this is just the next little leg up, time to reposition, time to buy more before the next leg. Anxiety, denial, fear, panic, capitulation. I'm out, completely selling everything. And you have this same pattern that plays out. It crashes all the way back down. All of the hype that was generated in the beginning is now gone. And now you have the opportunity to buy. So the point of this is by understanding your own emotions, you know when to get into the market. When we're looking at the market cycle today, looking at PulseChain, looking at Hex, the whole market's down. Everybody's at each other's throats. The whole community hates each other right now. And that's so typical with your standard, depression of the market cycle. It's the same point that we're at today. We went through all of this sideways turmoil, all of the sell-off and the, lack of volatility as prices pretty much just do nothing for months and months. And then PulseChain started to break out. We started to see things kind of shift. And I do believe that where we're at right now is the disbelief phase, where we started going up, but now that we've pulled back down, everybody's kind of like, well, that was false. This is all a scam. It's not really going to trend. And then what we end up seeing is that's right where the market starts trending. Now, I think that this is the most important thing to understand when it comes to time frames, because every Bitcoin cycle since the beginning of time has followed a 4-year cycle. If you take a data point from every cycle low of the bear market and you draw another data point from the next cycle low, it equals 4 years. The only time that it didn't was the first cycle, and Bitcoin was worth $2 million in market cap, but it was 3.2 years, so it's close enough. But if you guys notice, from the bottom of the 2015 bear market to the bottom of the 2018 bear market, 1,428 days. It was only a month from being exactly 4 years. And it's better to play the 4-year cycle than the halving, because the market starts uptrending before the halving ever happens. The halving takes place, and that's usually when things go crazy. So by understanding the 4-year cycles, you can buy the peak bottom every single cycle, and the only thing that really differs is where is the cycle going to top at. So we can see that the 3.2 years, 4 years, and then if you get even into the most recent cycle, the bottom of our 2018 bear market, you draw another data point to the bottom of our most recent crash, if the FTX collapsed, it was exactly the exact same amount of time from our last cycle, 4 years from the last bottom. So this is why I think it's so important, because by understanding the 4-year cycles, you can get in at the exact bottom every single cycle, and you can scale out. You don't have to nail the exact top because you're already in so much profit, it doesn't matter. Most altcoins buying at the cycle low, holding just to their all-time highs is usually 10, 12, sometimes 20 plus X. So it doesn't take that much, but you give yourself the advantage by getting in early and understanding this. If you don't time the cycle, you're buying the top, you're going to get dumped on, because there's people like me and there's people way smarter than me that are actually running institutional banks that are going to, they decide when this stuff goes. But they also follow these. I mean, there's a reason these things do the things that they do. Everything is cyclical.
whether it's through time, whether it's through emotion, they're all kind of one and the same thing. Now, we can also apply this to the bear markets and get another pattern. Every one of our bear markets is 1 year in duration. The longest one was the one in 2013 and 14, being 413 days, but close enough. And so what we end up seeing is the bull markets are 3 years up and the bear markets are 1 year down, completion of a true 4-year cycle. You can buy peak low of the bear market and buy peak low of the bear market, and every single time it equals 4 years all the way through. So if we have 1 year bear markets, both of the last 2 bear markets were exactly the same time, 364 days, from the peak all-time high to the peak all-time low of the bear market. So if anybody can show me something that's more accurate than this, I would love to find it, because truly I've never found anything more accurate than this. The people that I've helped also follow along with this have made more money than they've ever done in crypto, and I can speak firsthand that I would not have been able to do anything that I did in crypto if it wasn't for understanding the 4-year cycles, because it is such a huge advantage. Now, we can come over here and look at Bitcoin and actually overlay it to the Wall Street cheat sheet so you guys get a visual representation of how this actually works. So the cycles themselves can look a little bit different. The price action can vary. But at the end of the day, it's still the same people trading them. It's still the same emotional creatures doing all of this. So even though the pattern itself might vary a little bit, it still follows the same universal stuff. We can see this with Bitcoin. We went through the same sort of psychology in the bull market leading to the blow off top. Once we started selling off, we went through a very similar type of consolidation. The same thing happened. I remember during the Terra Luna collapse, a lot of people, I had a friend commit suicide during all of that. So I know how serious some of these emotions get to certain people. It's just part of the game. But I'm telling you, by understanding this, you give yourself an advantage. You are able to see other people doing these things. You're able to see how they're being, euphoric, or maybe they're just being so pessimistic that the market's down. You can see those things, and then you understand when to get in and out. And so with Bitcoin today, the Bitcoin drives the value. Bitcoin leads the cycles. Once Bitcoin starts taking off, everything else follows. The rising tide that lifts all ships. We've just left the disbelief phase, and we've now made a new all-time high. So Bitcoin making a new all-time high, what we have historically seen, every single time that happens, all of the altcoins start to run, and altcoins start to outperform. So the opportunity comes in being early to Bitcoin, watching as Bitcoin takes off, and then watching that money rotate back into these altcoins, because that's where the real life-changing wealth is made. You can make good profit in Bitcoin, but chances are if you don't have a good amount to invest, you're not going to do that. A lot of people don't have a ton. A lot of people are trying to get out of debt. They don't have a lot to work with. So the best thing that you can do is play the cycles, get in at the opportune times. You don't have to nail the exact top or bottom, but I can guarantee you by understanding these, you're going to be so much better off. And with Bitcoin now sitting at those all-time highs, this is the moment of the cycle where we're about to see all of that altcoin profit setting in. So we can also apply this to PulseChain. We can see the chart of PulseChain, and we can see the same universal patterns playing out again. This is a really interesting point because everybody's kind of at each other's throats. There's a lot of negativity, but it just lines up so perfectly with the disbelief phase. And I have a lot of confidence that this thing is going to take off. And I have confidence because I've had the opportunity of trading these cycles. I've seen the universal patterns repeat over and over and over. And I'm looking at PulseChain today, and we just made our first higher high. We're still below the prior all-time highs, and now we're seeing this pullback. Because we pulled back, everybody's pretty much given up on it. But once again, guys, this is the disbelief phase. It's where nobody really thinks it's going to take off. This is the last moment before everything takes off. It's basically the last buying opportunity that you're going to have. Because once this thing takes off, the disbelief phase is at the very beginning of the cycle. So you can't even see it on this chart, but if it went lower, that's where the disbelief phase. What that's referencing is that we're about to have an entire parabolic trend that's literally just starting. So when we're looking at PulseX, we're also seeing a lot of the same similarities. EOS, this was a crypto I bought in 2017 and made over 50x returns on. And the chart looks literally the same, not even any sort of difference, really. I would argue it's a little bit more volatile, but that's a good thing. It shows that there's a lot of buy support. So when I'm looking at PulseX today, and it looks just the same as some of these other prior cycles I've traded, it gives me a lot of confidence because even though everybody's kind of at each other's throats, I've been through this before, and I've seen how this stuff plays out. I truly look at this as the last good buy opportunity that we have in this ecosystem before everything starts to get sent into new all-time highs. And so seeing how these cycles play out and understanding them and seeing what happens when they start taking off, I mean, this isn't even the full chart. It went up even higher than what that shows. So it gives you such a huge advantage. You don't have to nail the exact bottom. You could have bought at any point in the beginning of that uptrend and you still would have made great money. Everybody would have been happy with that. So it's all just part of the game. By understanding this, you'll know a lot more and be positioned better than the average person. Now, incentive token is my personal favorite token in the Richard Heart ecosystem. It does the least, but it's going to pump the hardest, and so that's why it's my favorite. I'm a technical analyst. This is what I do. I trade. Fundamentals are important. I'm not a hater on that by any means, but I'm always looking at the charts because the charts tell the biggest perspective. They tell things before any, like sometimes you can see the chart do something and then you'll be like, oh, it looks like it's bullish. And then all of a sudden some news event will come out that'll make the price break out. So what we oftentimes see is the price will tell us the story of what's going to happen before whatever economic stimuli comes out to push the price in that direction. But when I look at incentive token, we see more volume coming in here as we're like 10, 20x away from just the prior all-time highs compared to what we were sitting at when this thing was worth, whatever it was at those peak highs. So what we're seeing here is the reversion of a cycle. Anytime you have new money coming in, more volume at the beginning of the uptrend than what we even saw in the prior cycle, it's an indication that there's plenty of buy support in here. And we can see that based off the Wall Street cheat sheet, we can see that this is basically just that same disbelief phase where we just started going back up again, the first little sell-off that we've had, and this is kind of the last sell-off before that huge parabolic move kind of sets into the market. Now, this was a coin called Cardano. I'm sure you guys all have heard of it. This was one of my better trades in the last cycle. I bought it at 3.5 cents, and then I added a leverage position at 5 cents, and then was able to hold it through the whole bull run. But the chart to me just looks 100% the same as incentive. Like there's not really a difference. They all followed the same trend, had the same massive capitulation, 90+% correction. And then what Cardano did, because right where that thing is circled is where I opened up my leverage position. When we started breaking out, I knew that this thing was bullish. We had more volume coming in. We had just broken out of the bear market bottom and flipped that. And it was showing that there was people coming into the market. If the price is climbing, making higher highs and higher lows, there's obviously people entering the market. But when you see opportunities like this where everything is 20x below the prior all-time high, not to mention what happens if it goes into a new all-time high, the upside potential with this stuff is quite literally life-changing. There's no better way to make money. I truly don't know of a better way because I've seen people take $100 and turn it into $1 million in crypto. I'm not even kidding. It happens all the time. I have people that follow chain analysis and track wallets, and there's people turning a few $100 into multi-millions of dollars every single day in crypto. And this is, you don't have to understand the cycles so much, but I think by understanding the cycles, you know when to position yourself. As everything's at this low point, as we're just starting to take off, most people don't believe in it. Most people are pessimistic, and that's the overall sentiment. However, that's when the opportunity is the highest. This is when the time comes where you need to buckle down. You need to be positioned heavy. The heavier, the better, because this is where the opportune, time for upside potential sets in. So I think that that's arguably the most important thing that anybody should learn inside of the markets is understanding the cycles. Crypto is cyclical. Bitcoin is programmed to be cyclical with the 4-year cycles being the halving cycle. So where we're at in this current bull market, with all of the institutional adoption that we have, with all of the on-ramps that we haven't had these sort of things. Like when I got into crypto in 2016, you could literally only use Bitcoin. ETH had just came onto scene at that point, and there really wasn't any adoption. You were either a Bitcoin maxi, or you were an XRP maxi, or like an Ethereum maxi. But there wasn't the value. We didn't have banks that were accepting crypto. I would try and use my bank, and they would just not let me use it anymore and just shut off my account. And this is stuff that happens all the time. 2018 comes on. We have CME futures. We get more adoption that comes in, more ability for money to come into the market. And now, with the finalization of the ETF and the institutions, there's quite literally nothing more that needs to happen. Like, the adoption is here. It's already been adopted. Like, you have BlackRock accumulating everybody's positions. As they're shaking out the weak hands, we're seeing Bitcoin going into a new all-time high a year faster than any prior cycle. So what we're actually seeing is a much more parabolic cycle than ever before. We're front-running by 250 days to be exact. So all of our prior cycles have taken at least 1,000 days from the all-time high to the point of making a new one. We're at like 850 days that it took this cycle. So the dips have been smaller. Institutions are buying those. The amount of supply that's available is just smaller than there's ever been because we have real players stepping into the market and actually buying this stuff. So when I look at this, I'm really confident because I see a lot of people out here that are going to be able to make a life-changing amount of wealth this cycle. And when I see tokens like this that are just blowing up across the board, it doesn't really matter which one you're looking at. The whole Richard Hart ecosystem is primed, in my opinion. And PulseChain sets itself in a very unique position because we have true decentralization. I got into Bitcoin in 2016 because I was anti-banks. I learned about the Federal Reserve. I learned about all the monopoly that has created and how corrupt everything is. And when I saw that, I was like, when my friend told me about Bitcoin, it just clicked in my head. Peer-to-peer, I can be my own bank, I can hold my own stuff. But Bitcoin has sold out. Bitcoin's not what it was in those early days. And Bitcoin in and of itself isn't a payment system. It doesn't work like that. Bitcoin takes 30, 45 minutes to send a transaction. Like, that's just not feasible. And this is kind of the issue is, well, where do we look for an alternative? And I really believe that PulseChain is one of those because you have a perfect combination of a diehard community of people that have bought into the idea of Richard Hart and building their own alternatives. Because Bitcoin is the way it is because Satoshi let everybody do what they did with it. PulseChain is only going to be true DeFi if the people that believe in it build the alternatives. And that's just the facts of the matter. People will hate on Richard Hart for that, and I can also see why they would be upset because there's certain things that I would like him to, update as well. But at the end of the day, it's up to the community to do it. If you want true DeFi, there can't be one governing force that just pays for everything and then builds everything, because then you're never going to get that true adoption. Bitcoin is the way it is because you had the nerds at the beginning that were interested in the technology, that were trying to use the blockchain for the first time. And then because of that, it created an organic ecosystem. You have that in PulseChain too. And the fact is, because it's been gatekept from being on centralized exchanges between Hex and all of these, we have an amazing opportunity where we have all of this money, but it's existing on-chain. And it's one of the only true DeFi systems that we have. I mean, I've been a part of Arbitrum, Optimism, Metis. I was early investing into every single one of these. I got the Arbitrum airdrop and all of this stuff. And the one universal thing is you have all of these VCs. They own all of the supply, and they sell on you at the same time. It's one thing if they own all the supply and never sell. It's one thing if they have the supply and sell on you, which is what they're all doing. So when we have this perfect combination of this diehard community, we have this ecosystem, we have a DEX, we have a layer 1, we have a reward token, Hex being a better store of value than Bitcoin, I really do believe that this could be the thing Bitcoin was always set to become, but later, obviously has distanced itself from that. It's bought out by banks and institutions and governments. It will never be the thing that I wanted it to, and that's why I lost passion in crypto. Was I got tired of the way Bitcoin was and Ethereum was, and how all of the TradeFi people, buy up everything, give the average retail investor scraps, and then usually just use them for exit liquidity at the same time. What we have over here is a unique opportunity because we have the same values of what the original Bitcoin community was. Most people don't realize because they weren't here for those days. But the Bitcoin community in the early days was amazing, along with the ETH community. But how everything's distanced because of money, opportunity, and things like that, it's not really true DeFi anymore. There's admin keys, there's backdoors. The Bitcoin network is dominated by people that don't have our best interests in mind. And it's important that you have to focus on the ecosystem that is going to continue to build true DeFi. If you're not going to have true DeFi, you're going to have a TradeFi system that's monopolized by the exact same people that are going to own everything and cut you out of being that type of person. I look at PulseChain as kind of that last frontier of an ecosystem where we can get in, we can invest, and we can actually see something long-term come of this. Like Ethereum, Solana, Arbitrum, all of these other cryptos, they're not true DeFi. They have backdoors, they have the supplies bought and paid for, and they're going to dump on you. PulseChain is the one place where you have somebody that wants to pump everybody's bags, where you have a community that actually believes in DeFi, because all of the people that believed in Hex, they were using Uniswap way before the airdrop. And so some of these people are actually huge reasons for why we even use DeFi, and people don't realize how much this community actually means towards the long-term adoption. So I just wanted to break things down in a way that I felt would be the best to explain. Charts obviously tell the biggest story. You don't have to learn a heck of a lot to understand the cycles, but the big thing for here is the more that we can continue to push growth, push true DeFi in this ecosystem, and focus on making sure that we're building our own alternative if there's something that we need. It's the only way that Bitcoin became what it did. And when we see all of the other cryptos around us pretty much bowing the knee to TradeFi, I look at this as kind of the last opportunity we have to build a truly decentralized ecosystem that we can have our own money, that we can do our own things, and we can ultimately be sovereign with our digital identity. So, you know, at the end of the day, this is what I think will help you guys the most. So, yeah, if you guys have any questions, feel free to ask. And yeah. Yes, sir.
Do you foresee the four-year cycle playing out in the future, or is it going to change?
So already it's changing. The fact is we're a year front running this cycle. If you look at all the other cycles, 2014 to 2017, it was like 1,250 days before from the all-time high to the point of us making a new one. And then if you looked at our last cycle, it was like 1,095 days. So generally between 1,100 to 1,200 days. It was like 850 this cycle. So we're already seeing like a year head start in pace. And already the dips have been pretty small. In prior cycles, you were looking 30-40% drops. During COVID, we had a 72% correction. So already things are massively different. And this points to the conclusion where we're going to either have an early cycle top or we're going to have just a more parabolic type of four-year cycle. Because the four-year cycle projects that we're going to be topping at the end of 2025. The end of the year 2025 would be 3 years from our cycle low. So if we follow a normal cycle, a normal four-year cycle, that's basically where we're going to be topping. However, because we're front-running, we're looking at the potential of this being an early cycle top, basically being maybe the end of this year to even spring of 2025. Instead of having a 3-year bull market, it might only be 2 or 2.5 years. And that would be the only real difference, is it would just be a quicker means to an end. It would be, this cycle would end up being more of a blow-off top type scenario with all of the institutions, with all of the retail coming in, and it would just be a lot more parabolic. I'm not 100% sure which yet, because there's things inside of the analysis that we just have to wait, basically. But if we're looking at, like, you know, this correction taking place, us consolidating for a few more months before making that leg into new all-time highs, I'm personally leaning towards this just being a more parabolic cycle, and then us having a top at the end of the year 2025 following your traditional 3-year up, 1-year down type of trend.
So does that translate to a double top, more or less?
Not really. I mean, a double top in and of itself is just a trading pattern. So, like, you know, however the cycle tops, I mean, it could have a double top, it could make some other pattern. That doesn't really matter that much. It would basically just be Bitcoin makes this big parabolic move to like $250,000 all in one big, you know, kind of like 2017, how that was. Little pullbacks along the way before it eventually just probably tops in one straight up and down move. Double top, like, it's just a pattern, like, may or may not happen. It doesn't really dictate, you know, what Bitcoin does so much.
So what's your best guess right now?
For like what? What do you mean? Topping? Well, end of 2025 or like the end of this year?
End of 20, both.
Well, that's what I mean. That's what I think. Like, it's those two scenarios. What I'm watching personally is what this correction does. Like, this correction is probably the last buy opportunity we have before new all-time highs. I don't know how deep it's going to go, but I'm kind of watching for the length of this correction, how long it takes. If we take, you know, 2 to 3 months from this point before we're making that next leg up, I'm leaning towards the end of 2025. However, if we just start breaking out and running like 120, 150K with not very many pullbacks, I'm going to be taking profit because I just don't think that that's sustainable. And that, yeah, most likely. If I do, I'll tell everybody on Twitter when I sell. So, yeah.
I mean, you talked about the cyclical nature of the pattern,
Mm-hmm.
but I mean, depending on who you're listening to, there's a lot of talk about the Bitcoin ETF making things parabolic quicker. Some people are calling it a left translated cycle. Give me your kind of your take on that and how it's played its role in the cycle itself.
Yeah, so I didn't want to go into too much detail about left and right translations, just because I thought it would be a little bit too like over people's heads. But basically, like, if you draw a 4-year cycle, you're looking at peak low of the bear market to peak low of the bear market. The distance in between equals 4 years. So every single one of our bear markets has been 4 years from the last bear market bottom. So then half of 1,450 is 720 something approximately. I dropped out of high school. I don't know math very well. But if we end up topping on the right side of the mid-range point, basically if the cycle top is on the right side of that halfway point from the 4-year cycle, 4 years here and here, if the price peaks on the right side of that mid-range point, it's a right translated cycle. If the price peaks on the left side, it's a left translated cycle, which means a left translated means an early cycle top. You'd be looking at, like, you know, like I said, a top at the end of this year, maybe even spring of next year, and then you'd be looking at a 1.5-year long bear market or a 2-year long bear market rather than a 1-year long bear market. So it would shift, it would be a shifting point inside of the trend. The question is now, like, are we going to be in a left translated or are we in a more parabolic right translated? And we're right there at that, like, mid-range point that we don't know yet. We don't have confirmation. So I don't know yet, but I'm watching this correction because I think that that's going to give us the time frames to know, like, which side we're going to be peaking on, because it's super close right now but leaning towards left translation.
So we won't really be able to see what all the institutional money within the ETF until it kind of plays itself out.
Well, I mean, we're already seeing a lot of that. Like the market breaking out was on rumors of the ETF. ETF got approved. We had a little bit of a dip from some of the, you know, Bitcoin whales taking profit. But what we've seen is record volume coming in from this ETF. It's billions and billions of dollars. It's smashed every record for the ETF volume within the first few days. So it's already got so much more demand. And that's really where we're seeing so much of this demand coming in, is actually through that ETF, which for me, I think that that's going to be a huge catalyst for altcoins, is which altcoins get the ETF approvals. Those are going to be seeing a lot of the most adoption. But I do think that we're already seeing, we're either seeing a left translation, which is an early top, leading to a more parabolic, like, blow-off top phase, or we're seeing a more parabolic 4-year cycle fueled because of the ETF. But either way, it's both fueled by the ETF, whichever it chooses.
As a fun experiment, we know crypto's super volatile.
Mm-hmm.
While you were talking, there was kind of a big move.
What did it
What do
do?
you think the price is?
Right now?
Yeah. Just as a fun experiment, because we're all in crypto right now, and while you were talking, rather big move.
Well, how about this? Is it up or down? Okay, it's... I don't remember what it was even at, though, is the problem. I look at the chart, and then I see the chart. I know the chart in my head, but I don't know, like, the price. 61? Yeah. So...
7% dip during the top.
Oh, just barely? Nice. Well, see, I have a lot of buy orders set right now, so I probably got filled on some of those. So I think it's a good thing. I've kind of been hoping it was going to drop. Well, it's been taken off, right? We've seen Bitcoin going into a new all-time high way faster. That's a bad thing. I was bearish on that. I didn't want to see that. I want to see Bitcoin take its time, build a foundation, and then have a big top. I don't want to see it just take off like this, because momentum can't sustain itself in that sort of a way. And so when I see Bitcoin taking off at a year faster pace than anything, to me it's a sign. Well, if you looked at our bear market bottom, we kind of started bottoming in June and we just went sideways, and then FTX gave us one lower low, but ETH never made a lower low. Many altcoins never did. So what it showed was that there was people willing to buy this cycle earlier than any of the prior ones, so there was more confidence. So now that we're seeing the dips are less significant and everything's just going up quicker, I look at it as more of a bearish thing, because I don't want the hype to, I want the hype to sustain itself. And at the pace that we're at, it's like looking like it might not be possible. But, you know, regardless, we don't fully know right now to be able to definitively say.
Donovan, I first saw your name 2 months ago
Mm-hmm.
when you did that interview with Crypto Heartbeat.
Yeah.
And I share that video with my kids and my students because, in all honesty, your candor and your story during that interview has given a lot of hope to people who honestly are struggling right now. I just want to thank you for that.
Thank you.
Person that I love to show young people. This is what crypto really is.
Mm-hmm.
This story. So your background, your experience, that climb, and then your knowledge base now. Thank you so much. You are
Thank you.
answering a question that an old man can give validity to. Your life gives validity to what RG3 was talking about at the beginning. We need more people like your story. So thank you.
Thank you. I really do appreciate that. It means a lot. Honestly, thank you guys so much for all coming out here and supporting. Thank you guys, RG and team, for putting this on. You guys always do an amazing job. Super proud to have been part of the PulseChain tour. You know, you guys are awesome, and anybody that's been watching this and listening, you know, this is a huge opportunity. Even if we ended up having an early cycle top, I think everybody that's positioned right now is going to set themselves up to make a good amount of money, and probably most of you guys have already been positioned. So, you know, my biggest goal is to do YouTube to see everybody else make money, and, you know, I think that you guys are all about to do really, really well based off from what I'm seeing. So thank you guys so much.
Thanks, Don. Now we got something special for y'all. We're gonna bring up the ladies. So, of course, the two tour leaders here, SJ and Kaylin, KC, like Mexican,
Is there only two?
and Fashion Coder are going to be up here to give a talk about ladies in crypto and their opinions of it and what's going on in this space. Let's bring them all up.
I think we're going to need to use it because it doesn't reach that far, so we're just going to put it on there and put it down. Just let it be.
Who's going first again?
You, but it won't reach all the way over there, so we're just going to
Oh.
leave it here.
Should we do
in general.
magical chairs?
Yep.
We'll do that.
There you go.
All right.
We should be able to swing it.
Should we?
Yeah, it just won't swing over there. Oh, you make the stick longer.
Isn't he a great assistant? Everyone give RG a hand. Woo! Thank you. Thank you so much. How lovely. Wonderful. Look at us go. Woo! All right. Well, this is the second time that Kaylin and I have been on stage at one of these events. We decided that it would be beneficial to tell our stories because we really want to encourage and promote more women in this space and let them know that you're not alone, that this is a journey, and that there are a lot of very awesome women that want to see you succeed and see you become a part of this community as well. So we're just going to each kind of take a little bit of time to tell our origin stories, is what they call it. It's basically, you know, how we came into this community and, you know, a little bit of like where we come from, where we've been, where we're at now, maybe where we're looking to in the future. So I'm going to go first. I'm a little nervous. So let's see. I've always been into technology in a way. When I was a kid, I loved video games. I have this picture of me with a Game Boy, just like so excited about it. And, you know, I think I was one of this generation where we grew up with that. Like, I mean, obviously, like kids nowadays, like it's, you know, they're born with an iPhone in their hand kind of thing, right? But I feel like part of the last generation where it was that transition, right? Where we went from riding our bikes outside after school every day to staying home and playing video games after school, right? And like this whole community, right? Like your friends went from being the kids down the street to kids from all over the world online. And I really found myself immersed in that culture. At one point, I was playing World of Warcraft, and which is a online, it's called an MMO, it's a massive multiplayer online game. And I made friends through that who I ended up later on competing with at different gaming events, playing Halo and all of those things. So I got drawn into the tech communities kind of early and was really excited about that. And ended up going on to work for Blizzard Entertainment, who made the MMO, and found that whereas growing up I had a really hard time making friends with women, it wasn't that way as much in tech, because I felt like there was some other kind of underlying commonality that we had as women, as women in a space where we were always the minority. So that meant a lot to me because I didn't, you know, I didn't have a lot of strong women role models. I didn't have a lot of like good girlfriends or anything like that. So anyone that I got to connect with on a different level over the years, that just really became something important and precious to me. So being a little I wouldn't say tech savvy, just like into technology, mostly via way of video games. I had my first encounter with Bitcoin was a boyfriend that I dated when I worked at Blizzard, who bought drugs with Bitcoin on the Silk Road. So I found out, oh, okay, so there's this internet currency, this crazy money stuff, and you got to do all this stuff on your computer, and then you can get drugs delivered to you. Oh, it's fantastic. But I didn't touch it. I wasn't really interested that much in it. It just seemed kind of all over my head, and he didn't really talk about it much after that point. So that kind of came and went. And then, fast forward, that was probably 2012, something like that. And then in 2017, I'm just kind of doing my own thing on my own, still, I think, working. Oh no, by that point I had quit Blizzard and I was working on a farm in the middle of Texas, but still interested in technology. And I remember Bitcoin coming up again and hearing a lot more about it. And I was like, I remember that thing. It's interesting that, it's still around, and now, it has more value and there's more people talking about it. So I decided to figure out how to get some. And I had a good friend who I had met through the drum and bass dancing scene downtown in Austin, Texas. He goes by Crypto Kool-Aid. All I knew of him was that he was a sweaty, dancing, crazy motherfucker who really liked to, just have a good time and dance. And that's how I met him and that's how I knew him. But he reached out to me, and I think I had asked a question on Facebook about Bitcoin. He reached out to me and was like, hey, I heard that you're interested in this. Can you help you out a little bit? And then he taught me that there were all these other coins. There was all this other stuff going on. And I thought, okay, well, that's interesting. I'd like to get in. I mean, it didn't make sense to me at the time getting in early, right? I didn't even understand really what that meant. But I knew that he was talking about this was an opportunity, and that there were all these other little coins that you could take your Bitcoin and put it into all these other smaller coins. So I thought, okay, well, I'll try that, I guess I missed the Bitcoin train, or I felt that way at the time. And the way he was so jazzed into talking about all this stuff, I was like, okay, well, that's interesting. Let me try that out. So I diversified. I just actually was sharing that I found the screenshot of what I put my money into. And I think it was Ripple, Cardano, and a couple other, Litecoin maybe, and something else. Or Bitcoin Cash. And at the time, no clue. I didn't know what any of it meant. I didn't even understand, now that I'm looking back and thinking about it, I didn't understand the fact that they were fractions of pennies, really. I didn't get what I was putting my money into, or how that even worked. So did all that, and then forgot about it. I moved to Puerto Rico. I was living my own life, just doing what I wanted to do. And, in hindsight, now that I know what I know, I probably had all that stuff ran up. That was probably at the very beginning of that bull run of that year. It went all the way up and then all the way down, and I had no clue. So, so that happens. And then again, years later, and at this point in my journey, I've always been independent. I've always been a little strange and out there, and very much just doing my own thing and wanting to be on my own. And I started to learn more about the abundance mindset. And I remember it was called the 21 Days of Abundance with Deepak Chopra. And there's a part of it where he talks about the fact that there is all this money out there, that this trillions of dollars are out there. And it took me a minute to wrap my head around, because I've been very gratefully blessed in my life, not wanted for much, and have been well taken care of by my family. And at the same time, I've always been kind of a minimalist. I remember traveling to Mexico, seeing all these kids who had nothing, and wanting to be able to give more of what I had, because I was like, what, this stuff doesn't, I don't need it. I don't use this stuff. So I kind of wanted to give it away. But in that mentality, I never was able to see myself in abundance. It was just like I was okay with what I had and that was fine. And I was happy, like I was content, right? But doing this abundance meditation and learning about the fact that there's all this money out there, I started to think, well, what could I do if I did have that kind of money? If I was able to have and live more abundantly, and instead of just giving what I had, like, because I donate stuff all the time. I live in a bus right now, but you guys would not believe the amount of things that I still will take to the Goodwill and donate, right? Because I'm constantly going through things. So when I started on that journey, and then that led to me thinking more about my finances, because I've always been like really frugal. Like I'm a girl that like our birthdays are both near Christmas, and I would get my birthday stuff, and then I get my Christmas stuff, and like gift cards and cash, and I'd squirrel it all away, and I'd save it almost until the next year. Like just very, very, I love shopping at thrift stores, just very frugal. And I was going to sell my house. I bought a house in Austin, Texas, and I was about to sell it, and I thought, I need to know how this abundance that's about to come to me is gonna work for me. And in my independence, I was already on track to not have to work for anybody else. Like I had left my 9-to-5 job. Like I said, I worked on a farm in the middle of Texas. That didn't pan out all the way. I ended up doing liquor sampling cells. I did all these little odd jobs, but I didn't want to work for anybody anymore. Like I didn't want to like have a boss and sit at the desk, and like that just wasn't for me. So in that journey, and then learning about the abundance part of it, I was like, okay, what can I do that's going to set me up for success, where I'm not going to have to work for anyone but myself, and I'm going to be able to accumulate something significant. Like I want financial like wealth, right? Like, and again, like not because I want a Lamborghini or a Ferrari or anything like that. Like that's not my mentality. It's just, I know that I've been able to do good with what I had already. So if I can do more good with more coming to me, then I want to do that. And I started to look into a high yield savings account. I started to look into a 401k. And I started to look into options trading. And having bought crypto in the past, I knew I was going to put some into crypto, right, of this house money. And pay off my biggest thing for me at that time was paying off my student loan debt. So I was just like, all right, I want to get all that taken care of. And then at the very end, at the very bottom was crypto for me. Unbeknownst to him, my sweet friend Crypto Kool-Aid, he came to me and said, hey, and this is right after I'd sold the house, he said, hey, remember all those little coins I told you to put your money into? Take all of that and put it into Hex. And I thought, okay, like, he's been doing this game for a long time. Like, and again, I had no idea that he actually had done content. He used to stream on YouTube. Like, he was just crazy, sweaty, dancing Larry to me. Like, I didn't know how involved he was in this crypto community. But he's a good friend, so I trusted him. I was like, okay, I'll try that. And at one point, even though I wanted to be financially secure and I wanted to take care of my finances and I was already setting myself up to do that, I thought, what if I just take a couple $100, Larry, and like put that into this account for me and like take care of this crypto thing for me, because I don't, it's a little scary. Like I don't really know what to do with it. And he said, absolutely not. He said, no way. He's like, this is something that you need to take care of. And I'm so glad he said that, because I already knew that. In my heart, I knew. I was like, this is my journey. This is my financial journey. And I need to know where my money is going and what it is doing. So that set me on a path of learning. And I spent 6 months, hours and hundreds of hours listening to different YouTube streamers within the Hex community. Because Crypto Kool-Aid was like, he's like, look, I know I'm your friend, but don't listen to me. He's like, let me give you a list of a few different people. So I start listening to them, and I'm listening on double speed to some of them, and like just doing my thing all day and trying to wrap my head around, okay, like what is this Hex thing? And as I went on that journey, the more I learned, that the money I had set aside in that 401k, the money I had set aside for this high yield savings account, and the money I had set aside for options trading, thank God, because I would have lost it in options trading for sure. Like, there's no way. Like, sitting there at a screen all day, like monitoring, no, I don't know. So So I took all those little pockets of things and it just kept making sense. I was like, why would I put my money in a high yield savings account that's gonna give me like what, 0.5% a year when that doesn't even catch up with inflation? Like what? That doesn't yield anything. And then Hex is over here yielding, people as I was learning at the time, the people that had been in crypto, they're becoming millionaires and multimillionaires because of the yield of Hex. And again, I had no idea that crypto had cycles. I didn't know where we were in the cycle. All I knew was that this made way more sense than any other financial instrument that I had looked into. And if I could, get something done with it, I was willing to do it. And it was all a gamble to me. Like, none of that money was something that I needed to live off of, right? Like, this was all stuff that I was going to put away for, just to save it, to make sure that I had something set up for myself. But again, like, the financial tools that currently exist, just as I learned about Hex, none of it made sense anymore. So I did that, invested what I could. How much time do we have? Okay, good. And basically, like, after that 6 months is when I learned who Richard Hart, who created the coins. And then that led me to listening to SciVive, which in other ways I don't need to go into right now, but totally changed my life and really empowered me in terms of feeling like I provided value and that I had become, I felt like I had more of a purpose. And that feeling has just intensified, daily. Like, the more that I get to do in this community, the more that I see, that there's an impact happening here with this tour and, what we've put together and what we're doing. It ignites this fire over and over in my heart. And to kind of, full circle it, the connections that I've made now in this community with the women that are in this community, it's like nothing else. Like, a lot of the women that I've met along the way, like, we've kind of fallen out of touch and, like, I don't talk to them anymore, but, like, I know I've made lifelong friends here. Like, there's people that have, really just changed my life in such a way that it means so much. And what I want to do, and what we're doing up here is just, being kind of, echoing the fact that, like, my story is I'm not alone, right? And this can be your story too. And we can continue to perpetuate that and continue to build one another up. That's the biggest thing, is that I see women here that are working to promote each other and say, hey, like, you've got something really good there. Like, I can't do what you're doing. I can't do what you're doing, but, like, I'm going to support it as much as I can.
Good job.
Yeah. You going next? Okay.
Maybe you guys should switch seats.
Yeah, that's you.
Is that good?
Yeah, is that close enough? Okay.
All right, hello everyone. Can you hear me? Yes? Okay.
Grab this thing.
Thank you. That's great. Awesome. Hi everyone, my name's Rachel and I go by Fashion Coder to the crypto community, also sometimes Crypto Bestie. But it's so exciting to be here today and I'm excited to tell you about my story and how I got into crypto because it actually started a really long time ago. And so my dad is over here, and my dad's a big part of my story, which some of you know that. But finance was always something that we talked about in my household growing up. I have 4 sisters, and I just absolutely love it. I have the best family in the whole entire world. But my parents were super open about finances from a really young age. And I remember the first time that I realized the concept of what money was. And I was young, I was 3 or 4, I had a cash register, and I had these plastic coins that went into the cash register. And I thought it was the coolest thing. But I also understood that I could use those coins for something that I could pay for. And as I went through that process and growing up, I always had a fascination for money. And it wasn't like the weird, greedy, whatever. I was 7. But I always liked having piggy banks, but not just piggy banks, the ones that you have to have the code for. And then you put your money in and, tracking all of it. And I remember I was 7 and my aunt and uncle gave me $20, which I thought was the coolest thing, right? $20 to a little kid is literally, you are wealthy if you have $20. And I remember getting that, and just, it was an interesting feeling because I felt like I was my own bank, right? Like I had my own piggy bank. I had the money that was coming in from, you know, whoever. And I just remember I was like, I like this feeling. I like being in this spot. And because finances were such an open thing in my family, it was one of those things where my parents, they would talk about, you know, saving and all of that. But we never really talked about investments. And that's okay, because eventually we got to that. But as my journey went on, I always wanted to be a teacher, and then that switched. And I was in a computers and business class when I was 13, and I had this website that I was able to make, but throughout this whole entire class, we had to have a business. So I had a clothing line business where I got to do all of the different projects for this particular class, and it was really fun. And one of the days, the teacher had her son come in and teach us how to build websites. And that was the day that I decided, I am going to go into this because I could see an entire career for myself. So I started coding when I was 13, and I followed that throughout high school. I did my high school experience and all of that. I did my AP classes and my college classes, but I actually went to a tech college as well, and I got a tech degree in information technology. And I went through that whole process and figured out that pretty quick that I wanted to be a software engineer. I didn't want to do any of the networking or the hardware or anything like that, but I decided that I wanted to be a coder. So eventually I got to college and I studied computer science. And that was an interesting experience because, as we know, being in crypto, like, we are the minority as women. And that was definitely my computer science experience. I would show up to those classes and I was always the only girl. And if there were other girls in the class, we wouldn't talk. It was one of those things that we just wouldn't like connect like that. And so coming into this space, I feel very at home because it's a normal experience for me. But yeah, so I got my degree in computer science, became a software developer, did the whole shebang. Worked at all these different companies as an intern and then actually as a software developer. And pretty quick I realized, okay, wait, why did I just devote the last 10 years into coding and all of that? Because I realized I actually didn't like it. And that's okay. It's okay to change your career. And so I was a software developer and had all that experience with the coding, but then I was like, I don't know if I can get into this. And so along the way, I was a sophomore in college, and my dad was like, hey, I invested in a couple of different like crypto coins, and you know, I was in these computer science classes and I was hearing people talk about crypto. And so my dad was like, you should invest into Ethereum and then we'll just spread your coins out between the different things. So this was in 2019, and I actually bought Ethereum at $83, which was the very bottom of the last bear market, and I watched that double in a week. And I was 21, and I was watching this double, and I was like, oh my gosh, I didn't know that money could do that. And at the time, I was working at Victoria's Secret. I was on commission. I was making more money than anyone that I knew in my college career because I was making commission off of my sales. And I watched my money double, and I was like, okay, I believe in it. I was completely sold just right off the bat. And then I went through the whole experience of actually blindly following my dad because, I mean, he wasn't leading me astray. I watched all of my money go up, and as time went on, he was like, oh, I think you should look at this coin, and I think you should look at this coin. You should invest this much into this coin. And so it was fun because we started having this relationship where we were actually talking about investments. But I had no clue what any of it meant. I was like, oh yeah, here's my money. Like, I had all my wallets, I had my exchanges and all of that, but I didn't really know much outside of my money was going up, and that's all that mattered in that moment. And so one day, my dad was doing all of our crypto work, and that's what we call it, is crypto work. He was doing all the research, listening to all the YouTubers, all the things, and he told me, he was like, hey, I would like you to take on a project. So I started solely watching SundaySwap. And if you know what SundaySwap is, it's in the Cardano ecosystem. It's one of their DEXs. And so I was so devoted to figuring out what SundaySwap was because it was the assignment that my dad gave me. And I had made good money in crypto, so me watching one coin for a little while and putting Twitter notifications on was, I feel like, my payment to him of, learning about that. And so as I started learning about it more and really getting more into crypto, I was invested into all these different cryptos. At that point in time, I was probably invested into 30 different ones. But I actually started realizing, wait, like there's so much technology behind this that I didn't even realize. And as a person in tech and having the background as a software developer, it blew my mind, the tech that was actually behind it and how important blockchain is. So started that whole process, and then we started seeing everything go up because of the bull market. And so, when the bull market happens, there are people that get so interested in what crypto is. So obviously we were both invested in all these different cryptos, and we had a lot of people in our life that wanted to know how to get into crypto. So my dad and I partnered up and helped all these different people get into crypto, and I felt like I was repeating myself so much. And for years, my dad told me, you should make a YouTube channel because there's not a lot of women in crypto. And he was like, you should make one. So I didn't do it for a little while. But then eventually I was like, I have all this crypto work and I'm helping out all these different people within my life that I might as well just make videos. So I started making videos, and pretty quick I ended up getting adopted by the PulseChain and Hex community. And it was crazy because it was such a whirlwind of a time. We went on a live stream together, and that was one of my first live streams that I did, and I never expected being a part of a community in that way. And so once I started, making YouTube videos and actually doing code analysis on different cryptocurrencies and just actually looking into what they were, I learned so much. And it was definitely one of those moments where I already believed in it because I saw it perform so well, but then actually looking at crypto and the basis that it has within the code, oh my gosh, it just blew my mind. And being able to read a white paper and also read the code at the same time and see where it matched up, it totally sold me on the entire process of actually what crypto was and getting behind it. And so that was really neat, having that experience and also being able to do it with my dad. My dad's awesome, and it has been, because we're still doing it, but it has been so great because we're each other's crypto bestie, right? And I talk about that a lot, is everyone needs crypto friends. And I appreciate the women in this community so much because we really do relate on a different level. But everyone needs crypto friends to talk about things. I have to ask my dad things like 10 times. So I'm like, I need you to explain this to me again. I don't understand what it is. And he's super smart. And so he tells me it over and over again until it finally clicks. But all of us need those crypto friends. And that's why I appreciate the women in this community so much, because they are those crypto friends. And we are those crypto besties, right? And so it's just been such an amazing experience being able to be in crypto and be in crypto in the way that I have been able to be a part of it. I was telling my mom before my dad and I left today, I was like, I get to go see some of my crypto friends today, which is so fun because it's such a special experience, because not only are we over here building wealth because of cryptocurrency, but we're over here in a community that supports each other no matter what. And the events that I've been able to do with both of you have been so much fun, as well as the other women in the community as well. So it's been such a great experience being a part of this, and then also having the crypto be a part of it as well, and the connections that you can make. We have something where it's like, you see someone and they're in crypto, and once you find out someone's in crypto, it's me, because our cells do that actually. If our cells in our body see another cell that's like it, it does an it's me and then connects. And so I feel like that's the same when we meet people in crypto, especially in the PulseChain and Hex community. You meet someone that's in that and it's like, oh my gosh, wait, and you just immediately have that connection. And so I really appreciate all of that. And this tour has been phenomenal. So I want to give a compliment to everyone that's been a part of it, and thank you so much for letting me be here.
Yeah, No, I haven't. Perfect. Is it falling? No, I don't want it closer.
Oh, you don't want it closer?
It's falling.
No, it is falling.
Put the leg forward. Got it. Thank
Smart.
you. That's why we keep that guy. So let's see, where do I even start? This is not my forte. This is not what I enjoy doing. If it was up to me, I would be completely in the background doing my little setup thing. And it was, but it was because we were having a lot of events that I was seeing, 6, 7, 8 women, and they were hearing the speakers, but they weren't really listening to the speakers, right? Because what happens? Our husbands are speaking and we come. Or my brother is going, so I have to go. Or I've met some of these internet people online, so I want to come and meet them, right? But the guys are talking this high level tech, and you're like, how does this really, affect me? So just to give you a little bit of my background, I don't come from the tech world. I like to call myself a mom, but when you ask other people, they're like, you're so much more than a mom. You do everything. But my story really evolves around my children. I have my first one. She's graduating high school this year when I was graduating college. And so I went to college in Texas, moved back to California so I could be by my family. And the same Christian school that I went to, my grandfather's a pastor, I was ready. I was like, oh, I'm bringing my kid back to this school. It's going to be great. She's going to have the same foundation that I had. And then I get there, and I'm like, wow, they're not valuing Christian education anymore. Like, the administrative staff was all over the place. Teachers were taking 3-hour breaks. I mean, it was just disarray, right? And it was because the school couldn't keep up financially with the demand of pay, where the public school could pay the teachers a lot more. And so I said, I'm going to forget my background in sports management and business. I am going to stop doing all of that. I'm going to focus on these schools. Grandfather, if you will entrust me with these schools, I want to be your executive director, and I'm going to see if we can turn this thing around. In doing that, I managed to bring the schools from, I want to say we had 2 preschools, an elementary school, and an infant center. And between the 4 centers, we had less than 30 students. At the height of the school, right before COVID, between the 4 centers, we were up to almost 200. So things drastically changed because, as you can see, I am quite the micromanager. I want things this way, this way, this way. And to me, that's how you get things done. But, that wasn't like my passion. Like, I always had like this, entrepreneurial sense. I'm a bit of a risk taker, a little bit of a gambler. So I was always playing in like other little things, right? Vegas is real close. We would drive up there. I'd play poker, just have a good time with my husband. And then I realized, I could play poker at home. Sometimes instead of watching TV, I could just get on the computer and do that. And I had done really well on a site called Full Tilt. And then the government said, oh my gosh, you guys are making way too much money, so we're going to shut this down. I was like, no, you can't take away my poker. Like, that's my little hobby money. And so some friends that I had, they were like, oh, you can still play poker. You just have to buy Bitcoin. It's like, well, what is Bitcoin? They're like, oh, no, don't even worry about it. It's just a Coinbase app. You just download the app, you send it here, you win, you send it back. So I won a tournament, probably left maybe like $300 within Coinbase, because in my mind, I'm like, oh, I'll just leave that there. I'll play another tournament. Then life takes over. You have kids, you have family. You don't come back for 6 months, 7 months. Stop paying attention to it. I come back, and this $300 is like $2,500. And I'm like, why am I playing poker? What is this game that I can play, right? So my husband's like, I've been telling you, I've been watching these YouTube videos, and there's this one dude that says all you need is 1 Bitcoin, and you'll have $1 million. And I was like, oh, okay. Well, it sounds really nerdy, and you're really nerdy, so you do that, and I'm going to go back to work and doing all my other stuff. So he did. He got really deep into crypto. By the time we got to COVID and DeFi summer, altcoin summer, whatever you want to call it, he probably had a wallet of, 100 different coins, right? And then one day he comes to me and he goes, babe, I found this guy named Richard Hart, and I'm gonna give him all my ETH. And I'm like, what? What are you talking about? Who is this man? And then he shows me this man, and he has on a hat, and he's like sitting in a throne, and I'm like, what are we doing here? Like this cannot possibly be where we're gonna put all of our money, right? But for me, the reason why I kind of turned away from crypto, where he like really got deep into it, was the volatility, right? I had, $2,500, and then I didn't sell it because it's gonna go to $1 million, and then I come back and it's like $500, and I was like, oh, 3 to 5, that's not, a big deal. It was just too much for me. Like, I have a regular everyday life. I can't be looking at charts. I can't be timing the market. And so when he explained to me that Hex was this idea of time locking, right, where you could essentially buy this crypto, stake it, you had 100, now you come back, it's 110. That's pretty simple, right, when you think about it. You lock it, you get more. Okay, so then if the price goes down, then that kind of balances a little bit. Okay. But then I was like, I think I want to learn a little bit more on my own. So then I find the community. And the community is vibrant and happy. We're in a bull market, right? That's when everybody's all like best friends online, as opposed to now where everybody hates each other. So then I started getting deeper into the community, and then there's these German guys that are like, hey, we're going to travel around the United States, and we're going to give away 5,555 Hex at every event. And right then, that was a couple $1,000s. So I'm like, oh, well, I'm in Vegas when you're in Vegas, and then you're coming to San Diego, and I'm from San Diego. And so I just literally just fell into this community, right? I wanted to win some free money because I liked Hex. I liked what it did. And then I met some guys who could use my help, right? Organizing these events and whatnot. And so I got really deep into the community that way. And the more that I got deep, the more I realized that had I not, I could have been in serious trouble. Because as a wife of a husband who's investing a lot of capital into crypto, if something was to happen to him, what would I have done, right? This is not your standard bank where the husband dies and then the bank calls you and they're like, oh, you have all this money, or your estate agent calls you and everything happens, right? Like, you have to know how to access these funds if something was to happen to him. And so that's why I encourage the men, you know that you have these wives, girlfriends at home, and you tell them a little bit, but they're like, oh, babe, that's your thing. You do it, right? But they have to understand. And for the women, we're not always going to be willing to watch hours and hours of YouTube, right? It's probably not going to happen. No, yeah, no. Like, I know every influencer personally in this community, and I probably watched like an hour of all of their content. And it's the hour that I'm on it. Right? Like, seriously. So that's what I come up here to talk about, is the importance of getting your spouse, your partner into the ecosystem so that they really can understand. And it's not just a matter of knowing the seed phrases, right? Like, they have to understand not only how to access it, but how to move it, right? What good is it if they can just see it on a computer screen if they don't understand how to get it into tangible hands, how to transact with it? Maybe it's peer-to-peer by then, who knows? But they need to constantly be learning to understand if this is where you really find true value. On the other side of that, Donovan talked about market cycles, right? And it's very important to understand market cycles. But I also believe in the crypto space as far as changing our financial landscape, right? This being our money, because the dollar is broken. The Federal Reserve System is shit. Inflation is a problem, right? And there are safer ways to utilize crypto. I'm a huge advocate for stable coins. I'm a huge advocate for staking stable coins, because that does allow you to have some safety, a lot less volatility, right? They're supposed to be stable, but to still accumulate that yield over time. Because most of us, especially parents, we're saving for our kids. We work. Our jobs pay our livelihood, our salaries. We are doing this for our children, and they already understand. My son plays Roblox more than I'm comfortable with, right? But what I do know about that is that he already understands digital assets. Because what does he ask for on Christmas at his birthday? Some Roblox gift card so that he can go and buy an NFT that doesn't have any value, right? Literally just giving that corporation our money. Those games are coming to the blockchain. These kids get it. Kids talk about crypto way more than your grandparents do. So that's where I focus my energy. I was in education for 15 years before I went full-time crypto. I'm still in the process of developing a project so that we can educate students with a reward-based crypto system to where they actually find some interest in what they're doing, because we have to teach them, and we have to start it young to where that is a part of their regular academics, because I learned so much shit in high school and junior high that mattered none, but yet no one taught me how to file my taxes. But we got to do it. So that's my 2 cents. If you guys have any questions, we have a couple more minutes up here. No questions? They're all clapping because they have no questions. All right. Thank you. Oh, we have a question.
I love bragging to my wife. My daughter actually got me into crypto, and I love showing my wife all the different ladies of crypto. Is there, in any of the other communities, is there a community of women as active or as
I haven't seen one.
as the PulseChain? I mean, so
There,
No, I haven't
there are
seen one.
several women within communities that kind of stand on their own, right? Like XRP Jenna,
Yeah.
right? And then Wendy O, right? But not like this at all.
not the kind of thing that I could
Yeah.
point my other daughters to or my wife to, and they could just see the that community.
Right.
Yeah, that's great.
Yeah, we're very inviting. If you like Telegram, we'll do Telegram. If you like Twitter, we'll do it.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
What would you say is that, obviously you guys have 3 different perspectives. You said the 3 things that brought you into crypto, but like you said, speaking to women, especially from a male's perspective, what are those onboarding keywords that you guys would be looking for more attractively into opening type of conversations, let's say, with ladies?
So me personally, when I've talked to other moms or whatnot, I talk to them in the terms of saving for your kids' future, right? All of us put away monies for birthdays. We put away money for Christmas. We have this savings account for this. Like we, as moms, like we prepare for these types of things, right? So to be able to say that there is a savings system where just by holding it still, especially with stablecoin staking, like just by holding it still, you can accumulate more. And now you can set the dates to align with those special times in your family's life. So you know that you're planning for when, like my kid's graduating high school. So she has a huge stake that comes out right when she graduates, right? You're saving for a car, so it's at 16. You use those landmarks to help them future plan, but through crypto, because the bank is not going to help you, create any real wealth.
Sure, that's a great tip, especially with staking and comparing to a long-term savings, especially for coming out again on staking. So that's a great thing.
Yep.
Something for me on that actually, so I'm not a mom, but I would love to be a mom one day, and I'd love to be a stay-at-home mom. And crypto affords me the opportunity to do that, because that's a lot to ask of someone in a relationship to be able to be a stay-at-home mom. But having crypto in my life, I know that I can provide that for myself, so I can have that. And I know that that's really attractive for other people as well.
And then I'd say for me, it's, again, as being someone who's so independent, being my own bank. Like knowing that I interact with my money and there's nobody in between me and my wallet. Like I tell women that, and then I'm like, it's a benefit. It's scary too. But, like to be able to be someone who can say that I own that, I control that, like I have authority over what I do with my money, like that's one of the biggest things for me. And then in addition, like the knowing that I have something with Hex, like for the future, right? The staking part of it, like that just makes so much sense to me. Makes a lot of sense.
Savings, independence,
Yeah, yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. All right. Oh.
I have 3 daughters, and I really appreciate all your stories and where you're coming from. What advice or recommendation would you give to me to try to help them kind of be inspired, like get them interested, because I've done some things, like with liquidity providing and stuff, just try to like show them, they're pretty young, one's 11, 7, and 2, so, they can only probably get so much, but I'm interested to hear kind of your thoughts on helping get them interested so that, they can kind of be empowered, later in life.
Follow her on TikTok.
Yeah. And I think I got a little answer for this one because it's kind of what I did with my kids. So I have a about to be 18-year-old. I have he'll be, everybody's turning something coming soon, right? So 18, 13, and 11, right? And so about almost 3 years ago, we really wanted to get them involved in crypto. But we understood that we couldn't just keep talking to them about it. Like, they need to be able to click the buttons. So what we did was we bought all the kids' hardware wallets, and we turned it into a game where we said that everybody gets preloaded with $100. You can choose what you're going to buy. Like, if you want to go all in one coin, like one kid went all in Hex. My son totally degened. He bought like $5 of like a bunch of different coins. You kind of see their personalities in the decisions that they make. and then we would have like quarterly. It's still going. And I'm going to tell you, these wallets started with $100 a piece. Mine is by far the biggest. I'm not going to say exactly how much it does, but it does have 5 figures in it, right? Yeah. But that's because I'm the most conservative, and I probably, although my husband doesn't want to admit it, I've never drawn a line on a chart, but I have sold more tops than he can ever try to catch. So, so yeah, we gamified it quarterly. Whoever is in the lead gets a bonus $100, then the next person gets 75. The next person gets 50, the next person gets 25. So we're continuing to add to it, continue to talk about new things that have came into the market, new opportunities. But then it's the fact that like they have the portfolio. Back then it was Staker app. Now you can do it with like Hex Scout. They have the portfolio trackers on their phones. So then they can actually kind of, check in and see where they are. My oldest daughter just wants to sell all the time. She's like, I'm going to the movies. Can I sell 100 in crypto? I'm like, it's not what this is for. But yeah.
I love that. I think it's all about gamifying it. Even for me personally, crypto's just a game. And so it is that, what can I do to make more from my money? And it's just about seeing the numbers go up, right? And so I think that's a big thing. And then it's also having role models that talk about crypto and having all of that, because if your child looks up to someone, I'm a kids pastor, so I see this all the time. If your child looks up to someone, they're going to follow the trends that whoever that is. And so having role models that are crypto blockchain based, that will be super helpful too.
Like a video of them talking today.
Yeah. I mean, I would just add to what Rachel's saying, because that's why I said follow her on TikTok, you know what I mean? One of the biggest compliments I've ever had was there was a dad at one of the events that brought his daughter, and he was like, she just loves you. Like, she just thinks the world of you. And the crazy thing is, I don't talk about the coins much, right? Like, I don't talk about the prices or the charts or anything like that. So that's why I encourage, to watch other women within our ecosystem, because they do, right? And there's a lot of very, very smart women in our community that like have a lot to say about it. So that's what I would say. Yeah.
Thanks, girls.
All right.
Awesome.
Thank you. Quickly now. Can you introduce Hexray? Introduce Hexray? Take these chairs down.
You got another chair?
Oh. SJ. Move. Oh, go ahead.
Our next guest is my friend. We've spent time together at Burning Man, and then other activities. So the community has gathered.
You can't stream it because my notes are on my phone and my phone's signed into my YouTube.
In my opinion, that's why I built the channel that I built. So
My
I wanted
notes
to
are on my
showcase,
phone, so we can't stream it.
I saw these telegraph
It's okay, we'll get it
They
from
were just blocking the
Just in my pocket.
and just speaking highly of the more so than I've seen in space in all the years that I've
Just
been.
the other one.
I saw a lot of people scamming. I saw a lot of people having pump and dump rings and Telegram chats and all that. But in this hex community, I saw a lot of brilliant people. So I started bringing them to my show and showcasing who they are. And as they come and as they started, speaking,
Thank you.
and educating everybody on their ideas of what crypto which was doing was, we started to see people come and start to build their own projects. And it's really starting to take off with PulseChain because now we have over 100, I think it's 140 projects that we can build on it. My crew just built a project that we're just conceptualizing and trying to do some experiments. We're not showing a point or anything, we're just trying to see if we can make things work out there that Richard gave us the tools to do so. So, another one who's doing the hard work, my good buddy, X-Ray Vision. Another one who's smart.
I think so, yeah. Set up. This is going to be like karaoke. I'm going to have my back to you guys and just read the slides. While you're getting that ready. Hey, let's give a round of applause for Kaylin and Tim and Bree and everyone here at Nerd United for putting all this together. I feel like I probably should have spoke earlier in the day because the people that spoke that you guys have heard have been amazing, totally amazing. If you follow, Donovan's 10 rules and his cycle, it's wonderful information, very, very valuable. So, anyways, well, she's getting that ready. No, you're good. My name's Max. I'm rebranding to PulseRay Vision because we're a layer 1 community now, right? And I also answer to Max or whatever. But got 5 kids, 4 daughters and a boy. I've got them all into crypto. Most of them have spent most of the money they've made already. But they range in age from 24 to 9. So I kind of got a gamut of what all the kids are into these days. I'm pretty hip. I grew up in a family of 7 kids. Money was kind of tight, so we grew up mowing lawns, delivering newspapers, whatever you could to get some extra money. And I remember my first real job, like with a boss, was Burger King. So I started working at Burger King, and I also started washing dishes at Denny's. And within the first week of working these jobs and being yelled at and paid little, I thought, how do people do this for 40 years, right? Like, they go to work and let someone tell them what to do for 40 years? This is insane. And so at that point, I kind of started diving into a bunch of stuff. I bounced from job to job. There was one year where we had 20 W-2s just because I was bouncing to so many jobs. Eventually I got into the military, and people were surprised that I lasted 6 years there. But I told them, if you leave the military, they put you in jail. I'm kind of stuck. I was stuck there for 6 years. It wasn't like every day I was going to go to the military. So that was fun. And then after the military, I kind of got my stuff together and I started driving truck. And throughout this whole time, I was obsessed with the idea of not having a boss, doing what I wanted to do. So I would read everything from Richard Kiyosaki. I'd go into real estate. I'd look at courses, trading. I'd do Forex options. Went to join a whole bunch of MLMs being in Utah. This is like MLM capital of the world, right? So went and sold things, did a ton of presentations and stuff like that. And while I was studying Forex and options, there was a guy while I was up driving in North Dakota. His name's Alessio Rastani. And he's a smart dude, but I remember one time I was listening to him, and he said, it's time to look at Bitcoin. And I was like, what's Bitcoin? And this is at the end of 2014, beginning of 2015. So I look into Bitcoin, and he was doing it as a trade. Bitcoin had just crashed from $1,000 to $150 when he said, check out Bitcoin. So I went down that rabbit hole, started listening to podcasts, YouTube, whatever I get my hands on, and it was all anarchists. It was all anti-government. It was all people full of piss and vinegar, just like me. They're like, Bitcoin's going to save us. Bitcoin's going to save us from the banks. It's going to save us from the government. Spoiler alert, didn't really happen, but the promise was there. Like, there was so much promise in that community. There were so many people that believed in freedom and personal sovereignty. And so I drove down that rabbit hole really deep. And at that time, Ethereum was coming out, and Ethereum was like under $1. But I didn't pay attention to Ethereum at all because I was still trying to wrap my head around the Bitcoin, ecosystem and how it worked. And so I started buying Bitcoin. The first Bitcoin I bought was on eBay. Like, I created a wallet, and I sent some dude some money, and then he called me to see if I was a real person, and then all of a sudden the money showed up on my laptop. And I was like, oh, that's weird. So I just started, I ran a node, because back then you had to run a node. Oh, here you go. Yeah, The Evolution of NFTs, How to Turn $1 Million into 100. That's the name of my title. And these are daddy dollars that I made way back. This is way before Bitcoin. I was printing my own currency. That's my handsome mug right there. They were called daddy dollars. And I was trying to pay my kids in daddy dollars to do chores. So I was launching a coin before it was even cool, right? And here I am as I finally settled into the career of truck driver extraordinaire. Basically, as a truck driver, you've got to go wherever the money is, right? So like the oil fields or the gold mines or wherever, they're all places that your family doesn't want to live. And so I would park my family in southern Utah, and then I'd be gone for 6 or 8 weeks, and then I'd come back, visit them, remind them what I looked like, and then I'd be gone again. So that's some pictures from there. And this is actually the Bitcoin ATM, the first Bitcoin ATM that was overstock.com, right in this area. I think it was actually right over here. And I think this is like when I started actually buying Bitcoin, because what I found out about Bitcoin is you can gamble with it. So I wasn't a drug dealer, and I wasn't a nerd, but definitely a degen gambler. How many people in here own a meme coin? Raise your hand if you own any meme coins. You're all degenerate gamblers, and I'm disgusted with every single one of you. Anyways, so yeah, I'm driving truck. I'm diving into this. I get my Bitcoin. I ran a node. There was a website called Satoshi Dice back then, where you could slide your probability of winning and your probability of like your risk and reward, but the house always had an edge, obviously. And so it was a lot like when I would go down to Mesquite or Vegas and I would play blackjack to make extra money. So I was like, oh, this is like close to 50%. It was a lot of fun. They did shut that one down, but I'd be up 10 Bitcoins, I'd be down 10 Bitcoins. But again, back then Bitcoins were like $100, $300. So like to me it was like, oh, it's just fun. And I had nothing to do up there in North Dakota, like except for stay out of the cold. So that's how I got started in crypto. And then in 2017 was the first bull market that I experienced. And at that point I had saved, the price of Bitcoin had been going up, so I started buying it again. I saved up 1.5 Bitcoins. And to me that was a lot of money. So in 2017 when Bitcoin hit 20K, I had 30 grand. Now we had lived on 30 grand like a year at that point. So 30 grand was life-changing money, but we didn't know how high it was going to go. And the only stable coin that we knew about was Tether. And they're full of shit. They're still full of shit. They've never stopped being full of shit. I would never put $1 into Tether, personally. And so I saw this money come, and I saw it go, and we dropped down, and Bitcoin hit a floor of like 6K. Do you guys remember that? So it hit floor of 6K and went flat. And I was like, this is the bottom. And I'd been saving all of my money to get back in and buy the bottom. So I put all my money into the bottom, and at 6K, the next week, what happened? 3K, ladies and gentlemen. Shit. So that was a good lesson on DCAing in, but that was good. And then at the same time, though, I had tried to catch the altcoin wave between 2017 and 2021, and basically I just lost a bunch of Bitcoin betting on a whole bunch of different coins. I think that at that point, Bitcoin was worth 10 grand. I took a quarter of a Bitcoin, so $2,500. And I think the last time I checked it, all those coins were worth like $3.72 from all those altcoins from that wave, right? So I started like becoming, at that point I was a Bitcoin maxi. So I was putting everything into Bitcoin. I was stacking sats. I was a Bitcoin bro. And the person that had the best information on Bitcoin back in 2016, 2017 was this crazy dude named Richard Hart. Now, I followed a whole bunch of YouTubers back then trying to get as much information as I could, but Richard Hart was calling the tops and the bottoms, right? He was like, he was making the tops and bottoms, it turns out, I think. It was like, how does he know when everyone's going to sell all these Bitcoins? Allegedly, for legal reasons. So I'm watching him, and he starts talking about his CFD token, which some of you guys have heard about, and he starts talking about Bitcoin Hex, and I'm like, sweet, like, I'm in. Whatever this guy says, I'm in, right? And so we watched the birth of Hex for 2 years on Telegram, on YouTube, on Twitter, where Richard Hart would turn to the community and he'd say, well, what should the interest rate be? What should the penalties be? And people would weigh in and weigh out. And that's when Dev Kyle came up with the T-share, right? And explained to us, this mimics compounding interest. And it just blew our minds. We're like, holy cow. And because I'd listened to hundreds of hours of Richard Hart at this point, like I can give a pretty damn good apology. But I listened to him for hours and hours, and the adoption amplifier opened, and I aped in on day one because I still hadn't learned my lesson, even though Richard said don't ape in on day one. So I aped in on day one. I think it was like a third of a penny or half a penny on day one. It was a lot. Anyways, I'm listening to him one day, and he's getting a lot of grief for recycling. They're like, you're recycling, we know it's you, throwing all the Ethereum into the adoption amplifier, blah, blah, blah. And Richard Hart, he says things like, he's very, very subtle and very, very read between the lines kind of guy. And he said, do you think it's okay for someone to have a minimum bid at an auction? And I was like, oh, I know what the minimum bid is. Because we'd seen the price bounce off of like triple zeros and a 2 for a while, right? Or maybe it was quadruple zeros and a 2. I remember it ended in 2. That's all I know. And I went all in. I threw everything in. I told all my family and friends, I'm like, put everything into Hex. And they're like, well, we'll see. And so I did. I put it all in there. And then as the price of Hex rose in the spring of 2021, I had enough Hex and I had enough interest coming in to retire, to walk away from working for the rest of my life. I was like, man, we've lived on very little at some times. And this was more money than we could ever use. So I was able to retire because Hex paid me to keep the coins off the market, or the majority of the coins off the market. The only thing that Bitcoin ever gave me were ulcers. And I held that stuff for years and years. So that's when I was able to actually retire, walk away, and go travel. And I started helping friends and neighbors, just like Rachel was saying earlier, to where it's like you're saying the same thing over and over, night after night at kitchen tables. You're like, just make a video. And when even your horrible videos that get like 20 views, if you add up all that hours and time it would take you to go spend those 20 hours with those people, it's a no-brainer. So I started my YouTube channel, and I also wanted to ask people the questions that I wanted to answer. I wanted to be spoon-fed all this information. And if you have a YouTube channel, you can invite people, founders, and smart people onto your channel, like Rags to Riches and David Feeder, and all these geniuses, Alex from Hedron. You can have them on your channel, Fashion Coder. You can have them on your channel, and you can just ask them what you want to know. And the chances are everyone else has the same questions, right? I don't know what that was. All right. So, like I said, I started traveling and meeting a lot of the Hexicans, which are some of the greatest people I've ever met in real life and in online, you know. And this time when I retired, I wanted to think of a way that I could encapsulate and keep all the energy in crypto, because we saw, you know, Wells dumping their interest in Hex, and we saw all these other things where the volatility is crazy. So I'm like, how can we try to like keep as much of this energy as possible? So for years I came up with a lot of great ideas to build on top of Hex, a lot of great ideas to build on top of Pulse later. And I'd run into people, you know, like Dipcatcher or Gold Key, and they would explain to me within minutes why all my ideas wouldn't work. And they were right. So for 2 years, I was just brainstorming, trying to think of something I could do to contribute, build a community. And so, like I said, some wonderful people that we met throughout our tours in Vegas. There's Rags to Riches. I feel very safe in his arms. And so, let me see, where are we at now? There we go. Let's go on to this is the first NFT that was ever created. And it was, this picture is from Sotheby's. It was going for like, I don't know how many millions of dollars. But this is, on record, this is the first NFT that was ever created and sold, right here. And it kind of looks like a blob. But they started out as ERC20s. You know, ERC20s started to differentiate themselves. Before that, you did have colored Bitcoins, which basically just destroyed a bunch of Bitcoins. You know, back then people didn't know what Bitcoins were worth, so they were doing a bunch of weird experiments with them, right? And then we go back here to the evolution. We have the ERC20, which I didn't know till yesterday. Ethereum, ERC stands for Ethereum Request Call. So there's something for you, kids. But we had ERC20s, which are basically tokens that are easy to run on top of the network. Then you had ERC 721s, and these were the first non-fungible tokens that implemented the smart contracts. So now you could like actually tell a contract or a coin what to do without without admin keys changing it, right? And then, of course, it went on to the 777, which is an improvement, and then the 1155s. I don't have it on here, but the 1155s just basically have a whole lot more interoperability, and you could do things in batches that you couldn't do in 721s. That's the main difference of that one. And then, of course, we have the 404s, which, you know, Pandora blew up, Gophers are blowing up right now, where you just get one whole coin, and it spins you up an NFT, right? And then if you lose the coin, it burns the NFT. So that's adding a lot of liquidity to something that NFTs aren't super liquid. They're super, super volatile and basically they're for gambling, right? I mean, for years and years, wealthy people would use fine art to launder money, to hide money, to protect stuff. It was a game that the very rich were into that you and I couldn't do. And when NFTs came on the market, anyone can launder money through an art. You can draw a horse or a dick with butt, and you can sell it to yourself for millions of dollars and pay taxes and make that money clean. And so it kind of like opened Pandora's box in a good and a bad way. But as we went on with here I am. And so here I am as a shill monster for Halloween. As you can see, I would just go around telling everyone to buy Bitcoin in my blowhorn. So as we watched it move from JPEGs and money laundering, the first cool thing that really got my attention were the HSIs, or hedrons. So they took our hex stakes, which at that point were kind of like pouring something in cement, right? It was stuck, and if you wanted to break it open, you would pay the penalty. Now you could put it in a wrapper and you could sell it. So the HSI were the first NFTs where I said, I see what's useful here. I see what we can do. And after that, the next big thing that I saw was the what's a NFTs. So if you don't know what a what's a NFT is, it's basically a piñata that fills with candy. And if you want the candy, you got to bust open the piñata. But if you bust open your piñata, your candy goes to all the other piñatas that haven't busted theirs open yet. So it becomes this big game of chicken. And they had 14 days for you to mint your what's NFTs, and then they close it off. And people minted about 22,000 NFTs, or what's NFTs during that time. And that was quite a while ago, and only about 1,000 of them have been broke open. So it's, even though the price of Icosa's dropped significantly, that's still a heck of a game right there, and a really good incentive for people to hang on to something as long as possible. Let me go back to the monster here. So we saw that go through there to what's and now we're trying to see what we can do with NFTs and what people are expecting out of NFTs. Where first they were just expecting a cool picture that was going to go up a bunch of money. Now they expect there's financial instruments that are very sophisticated, where people are expecting to not only be paid for holding something, but also put that to use in farms, in pools, liquidity providing. There's like, it's what do they call it? It's like the never-ending yield game, right? You get yield, you find somewhere to put it to get more yield. Then you get yield, you find it somewhere else to put more yield. So people have come to expect a lot of things. I think we'll see some really interesting things coming out. And so what we've been trying to do is trying to bake as many of these things into the NFT as possible. And we're still working on it. We're still pre-audit, so I don't have anything to sell you today. But we were looking at the things that we thought worked the best as tokenomics, because people have been using things like reflection tokens, which have a tax going in and out that show up in your wallet. We've seen a lot of people try buy and burn to boost the price or stabilize the price of different coins. But basically, we took what we thought was really good was we liked the idea of limited supply. We liked the idea of rewards and giveaways, not just on liquid rewards, but rewards embedded inside the NFT, kind of like the what's a. And then we also wanted to add limited minting and limited time windows, kind of like what's a had 14 days, but they never did a round 2, right? So we took those ideas, and then we took token scarcity programmed to make the liquid token 0 one day. So that's all that we're trying to bake from what we've seen in the crypto sphere. You know, I think I lost my slide, but like I was saying, this next bull run, thank you. So at this point, crypto has shown itself as the dominating force in gambling and speculating, right? Like stock markets, scratch cards, Vegas, none of them can compete with the rush of dopamine and the high that you get from seeing $1 million show up one day and disappear the next. So as technology, it's completely taken over gambling, speculation, and investing at that point, if you're into high stakes. But basically, when the internet came out, I think we're kind of like where the internet was during the dot-com bust, right? You had the Super Bowl ads and all these people that just had like dogfood.com or erasers.com, and everyone lost an insane amount of money because they just thought everyone would just jump on the internet and buy stuff. But they didn't have the vision to see stuff like Amazon or Netflix or Facebook, right? And so here in crypto, we don't know what the giant actual use cases are going to be that go from the crypto sphere out into the real world. So we have people, you know, like Drac and RG3 that are being the responsible adults right now and trying to create real products for the real world, and we appreciate that. And I don't know if Hex and PulseChain are going to be those giants. I really don't. But what I do believe is that whatever those big movers are, what really shape the world going forward, are going to come from this community, the PulseChain and Hexagon community, because this is the best community I've had. So going forward, follow everything that Donovan was saying, for sure. The two things that I would add to those are invest in communities, not in technology or marketing. And the other thing I would say is know how much of your coins you're going to sell and at what price before it goes insane. Because once the euphoria hits, you're not able to make good decisions, right? Most people, that's when most people buy, right? Is when green candle, right? But know what you're going to sell and what price ahead of time. And if you can, set a limit order, if it exists, which right now, we have like Omni on Tetra, where you can set limit orders. And I think you can also set them on, which one? Louder?
9mm using V3 liquidity.
Yeah, so 9mm also has V3, where you can do single-sided liquidity to take profits, which is a great way to take profits if you don't know how to do that. Watch one of Sloth's videos, or one of Crash Encoder's videos, or one of Donovan's. These people put out so much amazing content for the new person or for the intermediate. Definitely check those guys out. So anyways, that's about it. That's my whole talk. Thanks for listening. Thanks for showing up. Okay, if you want me to. Oh, is that it?
You're still up, Matt.
Okay. Yes.
You're up. So the four of us are going to do an AMA with the 8 of you. And
Great job, buddy.
Thank you very much.
answer some last questions if anybody had anything else on their mind they want to ask anybody in particular. Or else we
Can you
start
two
asking
switch
guys
just because
questions.
you have the mic?
Of course.
So like I'm just trying to get them to pick up.
The recent filing by Richard's lawyers for the motion to dismiss. Do you think that we're going to get to see Richard actually fight this fight, or do you think it's going to get thrown out because the SEC couldn't put a case together? So, in my opinion, the SEC brought case earlier to a group of Hexagons, and it didn't hold water. This case, and the way it was wrote, the complaint, is even weaker, in my opinion, from what my lawyers told me and what we've looked at and what we've seen. So I think that this is going to get dismissed. I think they're going to drag it on as long as they can until it finally gets dismissed, because I don't think that it's, I don't think it's going to hold water.
That leaves it open then for them to come back and write some better arguments and try again, right? If it just gets this.
I don't know if they have any arguments. They're saying that Richard Hart misappropriated funds. They got to bring a whole new case, because there was no misappropriation of funds, and we all can see that it's on chain.
Right.
So, and now if you look at it, it's wrote so ridiculous that they've literally said Richard Hart misappropriated funds in July that he spent in January, and that's in the court docket.
Yeah, I like the time travel comment.
Yeah, and then his lawyers made a snarky, did Richard Hart misappropriate funds to buy this, that, or to buy a time machine? Yeah.
We were touching on this during lunch. Considering how it's a tax strategy for some of the ultra wealthy to have offshore accounts, or to have their corporation in another country that has more friendly corporate tax policies.
Or crypto policies.
Yeah, or crypto policies in particular. Okay, so knowing that Richard has talked about possibly in the future creating a special economic zone similar to Hong Kong or so forth, and how many people sometimes have dual citizenships to different places, do you envision a time in which, whether it's an actual geographic location or simply a digital world, that we in the crypto sphere can have what I would consider dual citizenship with no KYC, or some form of crypto tax-friendly world? And the example I was thinking of was way back in the 80s when Tom Selleck was on
Miami Vice.
Or Magnum PI, remember? And the butler that was always giving him the missions or whatever, Higgins. But then at the end of the series, you realize Higgins was actually the ultra-rich guy that was only alluded to. And I was thinking of how great would it be if we were just simple teachers or chicken farmers or truck drivers, but our true identity would be like Higgins in a digital crypto world in which all of our actual assets, like Warren Buffett, our actual assets are sheltered in a way that would allow us the mobility and freedom of financial transactions. Is that something that y'all see happening in the near or far future?
Very far future, anything like that. I mean, that's Fantasy Island, but tax mitigation, better laws for sure, like I was talking about earlier, and also, there are zones. Now, I don't plan on giving up my citizenship, but there are places that you can go give up citizenship. There are places you can go within the U.S. here, Puerto Rico, or you can go to Portugal that have favorable tax laws. So there are places, and Richard has hinted about Hexaco, so there's something there. Anybody else want to?
I'll add to it.
Well,
honestly, I think that, well, so far from people I've talked to that have actually moved to some of these third world countries that have seen a lot of crypto adoption, they've already seen a huge migration of people taking profits from crypto, moving to El Salvador and whatever these other places are. Because what we've seen is, as people have moved there, they've actually built a lot of first world things like airports and hospitals and things. So we're already starting to see a lot of those countries are pivoting towards being completely tax friendly, allowing whatever for crypto adoption to come in because they want the growth. So I think that it depends where you move to, because there is a lot of those places that are already forming, and it's definitely worth the dual citizenship if you can get things diversified. Because when you start making a lot of money, like basically anybody building in crypto legitimately, like they're funneling their money in different places, they're trying to accumulate as much as they can. A lot of these people are moving to these other third world countries because they're not really third world anymore, and because there's so much issue. I mean, I love America and I still think it's the greatest. I'll never give up my citizenship here, but the taxes are crazy, and some countries are worse, and then they're not America at the same time. So I think that there is a lot of advantage, and we're going to see a lot more of these third world countries kind of become first and then kind of unite together under some unified government. Because through crypto, I do believe there will be a unified government. I don't think it's going to be really soon that happens, but I do think that that's inevitable with blockchain.
Oh, I was just going to say, during the 2021 spike and a little bit before then, Estonia offered an online citizenship back in the day that a lot of the Ethereum dudes took. So there's that one, and then recently the islands of Palau have offered citizenship through blockchain. So you can go on with your wallet, give them a few $100s, and get a Palau citizenship right there. So I think it's definitely, right now it is geographic physical arbitrage to try to go where you're treated best, as Nomad Capitalist says. But in the future, I mean, governments are greedy. So they're going to compete with each other to take whoever's money they can get a hold of. And that's going to happen digitally eventually, I think.
This is probably an accounting 101 question, but my accountant didn't know the answer to a few things that I asked him. If you were to go to Puerto Rico, for example, and buy a place down there and establish residence, consequences based upon when you acquire the crypto or when you cash out the crypto?
You got to talk to
You know the
them.
answer to this?
You don't pay taxes until you sell.
You have to have residency.
No, there's an exit. So you're going to
Like
have
when
to
you-
talk to your professional about it because there are people that handle this specifically, and there's a lot of details involved. But you do have to exit the U.S. Your money has to exit. Your crypto has to exit. Now, how you do that and what gray areas you work in personally,
I mean, Puerto Rico, I mean, you're in the U.S. though. I mean, it's,
technically, but not tax-wise. You're under a different tax shelter.
No, it's complicated. So
It's complicated.
yeah, by technicality, as soon as it's in your wallet, it's taxable.
Yeah.
As soon as you switch any currency from to another currency, it's
Taxable.
a taxable event. But currently there is no system to regulate that and watch it. So if there are snippers to go through the chain and actually
Prove.
quantify that,
Yeah.
by the IRS,
Yeah.
there's no budget, there's no system currently
Yeah.
to go about that. So you're kind of in a gray area right now. But legally, as soon as the coin hits your wallet, it's a taxable event.
Yeah. So what you bring over there, you have to show exiting here.
they just not all the guys.
And there's different ways that they do it, but they have specific CPAs in Puerto Rico that handle that all for you.
It's not my CPA.
Figure out.
Anything about any of this. Probably call it.
Hey, RG. Hey. Okay, so this probably brings everyone back down, but I am a young crypto child, and so when Donovan was talking about the lows and the highs and getting in and getting out, I was excited. I was so excited, but I don't really understand why, like, getting a sell order or a buy, like, you can have someone else buy and sell at the right time for you.
Yeah, no, so the system actually does it. You set the system to buy and sell at times and percentages of value that you want to buy and sell.
Okay.
Just like in the stock market, you can do that. There are tons of videos out there that show you. I know Donovan does a lot of it.
Okay.
Crypto Coffee does a lot of it. That you can actually study and learn how to use these tools and how to set your sell orders or set your single-sided liquidity to exit out. Because in a decentralized exchange, you can set liquidity and it's like a sell order.
Right.
And you can set ranges and those kinds of things. So it's, just get out there, get a little more educated as to the details, but you got it, you understand.
So Crypto Coffee and Donovan to start with.
Of course.
Okay.
Yeah. And then, of course, be careful where you go because you want to stay within the community, I think. And,
Oh, totally.
and
I love
DeFi, the people who understand DeFi are the ones that are going to give you the best.
I love Hexagon.
Which gaps do you use? Which wallets? Which exchanges? Practically speaking, which ones do you use? How? When?
I use internet money for all my exchanges in the
You swap in
decentralized.
there? I do that too.
Rabby has been, I've used them all. I use them all. I definitely am an advocate for hardware wallets. Everybody should have a hardware wallet. You shouldn't be hot walleting it out there. We just had a good friend, a smart crypto influencer in the community that just lost a lot of value. And that's because there wasn't a hardware wallet to block an instance from happening. So, big advocate of hardware wallets. My personal favorite is Trezors. I use Trezors. And then all the hot wallets you have to be careful with. Now, I've noticed a problem, I'm going to let these guys talk about, is that because of Rabby Wallet, which works really well, I like it, and MetaMask, they interfere with each other and can clog up your browser. And if you're trying to make trades or you're trying to arbitrage, there's going to be problems. And it can shut you down and really frustrate you and screw up your trades if you're out there doing that. So be wary of all of the wallet situations out there. I would use separate wallets and separate browsers for, I wouldn't sandbox multiple wallets on a single browser. Move them to different browsers to keep from getting things crossed up. Because there is a switch in Rabby where you can turn it from MetaMask to Rabby Wallet. But for some reason that gets gummed up, and I've had problems with it. I don't know what you do.
So for exchanges, the big thing is if you're going to use an exchange, use it to get your money and then move it off to a hardware wallet. I wouldn't keep your money on exchanges. I mean, it's technically insured up to whatever the banking laws are, but regardless, I think you're still better off. Like, I use Coinbase. I've always loved Coinbase. That's always been my favorite exchange. I've never had any issues, but I've used literally all of them. And they've always came through. I've never had any issues, never held anything. So I always go with them. But then, you know, when it comes to hardware wallets, like, Rabby's been the best thing that I've used. I like it more than MetaMask. I haven't used the Internet Money wallet, but I've seen people that have, and it's definitely a solid product as well. But I would definitely, like, the big thing is anytime you're using a software wallet, instantly back it to the Ledger or Trezor, any software or hardware wallet you can. Because, I mean, the same way that this girl that he was talking about just got hacked, I got hacked the same way. So if I would have had all of my software wallets at that time backed to a hardware wallet, it wouldn't have happened. But, you know, that was my mistake. I had one of them back to a hardware wallet, and obviously that was where most of my money was. But had I have, you know, not done that, I would have saved myself a lot of money. So I would just advise that, you know, if you're going to use any of the wallets, always just use the hardware wallets and back them first and foremost. Don't even try and mess with anything that you don't. Keep a hardware wallet that you only store stuff in. Like, I have one just sitting in my safe that I never touch. Like, the only time I touch it is when I need to sell something. So it's been sitting in there for over a year, not doing anything. I don't sign transactions with it. And then the day that I use it, I'm sending everything to the one wallet I do sign transactions with. So I keep two completely separate wallets. I use one just to hold things, and I use one to hold things but then sign transactions. Yeah, every time. Don't ever do anything without a hardware wallet.
What about, say I took 20% of my bag and I wanted to do a little leverage trade, big number, right? 10% or something. VMAX, VPN?
Yeah.
What was that?
I can answer it. Yeah, VPN always. I use a VPN anyways, just all the time. But if you're using leverage, I mean, the first thing is just you got to know risk management. Don't mess with leverage if you don't know risk management. For example, if you have for every trade, let's say you risk 10%, that's your stop loss, and you are going to gain 30%, 1 to 3 risk to reward. You can actually, you only need to win 33% of your trades and you'll profit. So that's why understanding risk management and knowing how to factor that, you actually can lose more trades than you win and still profit. But if you don't know risk management, you know, you can make 20 good trades and then you make one bad one and you lose everything. So hardware wallets I recommend DEXs. Bybit has a DEX for leverage called Apex Protocol. I've been doing all of my leverage over there. The other leverage I do is on MEXC, so it's a centralized exchange. That's just risk involved, but I personally love Apex because if I can trade in a decentralized way, I can use a VPN. They don't even check me anyways because it's a DEX. But that way Apex Protocol. No KYC. Oh, they just moved to KYC, yeah. So you'd have to use Apex if you were like American.
I'm still on MetaMask.
We use Tangent Wallet. It's a nice setup. So TANGEM.
It's hardware.
It's both.
Yeah.
Another thing that most people don't realize is that a $150 laptop computer is a hardware wallet.
Yeah, true.
If you keep it from touching other sites and use it for crypto only, and you're not downloading stuff on it or surfing the web, then 150, especially the cheaper the laptop, the faster the battery dies. And as soon as the battery dies, it is a cold wallet.
And that's how I operate too. I have 8 Trezors
I haven't
and
used my
a
hardware wallet in
specific
4 years
computer
because
that I
it made me
use
so fucking mad.
for trading only. And
Yep.
8 goes in the safe.
Yep.
That computer stays in the safe.
Let me know.
We've had a good conversation about tax mitigation and kind of the reasons why to possibly look into
So I
this.
can't access my wallet
Can you
without
talk a little
this.
bit more about, again, the trust system, and again, there's other ways to support tax mitigation.
Let me text that to my wife.
Ship and try and go somewhere else.
Yeah, so I took the family to Puerto Rico to do the whole zero taxes, move to Puerto Rico, do that whole thing. I forget what the act is, 62 or something like that. And I took the wife, my daughter and my son out there, and my wife said, no way, daughter's gonna run off with one of these 19, 20-year-old Puerto Rican boys, and I'm not raising your 7-year-old boy in a third world country. And there was 2 murders while we were there. One of them was a crypto guy. So that one didn't help at all. So we weren't going there. So what were we gonna do? Well, I live in California. It's the worst tax situation in the country. So I started trying to figure out what we can do, and trusts are one way you can set things up. We have a company that we've developed that actually set up trusts for people, and you can set up foundations, like the Gates and the Clintons and all of them do with their money, and they move their money through their foundations. They donate to charities, and then they pay themselves through those foundations. A tax shelter. Also, you can do things like put your money into CRUTs, which are charitable remainder trusts, which is part of that. The foundation, and then there's DApps, which are asset protection trusts, where you can put your assets in them. And then, of course, there's the good old real estate market. There's real estate opportunities out there that you can invest in and roll your money through and take borrowed money out. Now, there's an argument for these platforms like liquid loans, saying that loan is a non-taxable event. I don't know, that hasn't been litigated yet. We still have to see what happens there. But taking a loan from liquid loans or one of these loan protocols, which are very risky in and of themselves, they haven't proven themselves, so I can't sit here and endorse them. I don't want you guys to think that I'm doing that. But these protocols are claiming that, if you take that loan, you are essentially taking a loan, which is not a taxable event, and the money that you're putting in there, of course, you're not taking out, and then now just by rotating loans and whatnot, that you can mitigate taxes that way. I'm erring on the side of caution, not going that route, but there's real estate opportunities also that you can invest in, take loans on those properties. If you've ever listened to Robert Kiyosaki, Ken McElroy, any of those guys, what do they call themselves now?
Wealthability.
Anarchist capital.
Ken McElroy calls himself wealthability, but you forget anarcho-capitalist.
No, there's another one. I forget the name of them. Anyway, it doesn't matter. But if you go look for some of those guys and what they're doing, they've taken billions of dollars and invested them in real estate, and they live, and Robert Kiyosaki himself told me he lives off of the interest of his loans. He lives off of his loans, and he does not live off of his money. His money is all locked up in property. So that's another way to do it, is to get into property and tax mitigate that way.
You can also look into stuff called Be Your Own Banker, which is basically where you overfund a life insurance policy, and then you can take loans from yourself and pay yourself back tax-free. And that one has been litigated. That one's been around.
That one works, yeah.
That one actually has been around before 1913, which is key to find stuff that was created before 1913.
Yeah. You basically over-collateralize a life insurance
Tell us about the Canadian taxing system.
Yeah, so I live in Canada. It's painful. And so I can say that we started our business here in the States. We kept it out of Canada. That's my best advice for crypto in Canada, is just keep it the hell out.
That's good advice.
Come to the States.
You come to the States. Yeah.
That's bad.
Quick question. Donovan, you talked about 4-year cycles, kind of alluded to other cycles. Some people say geopolitical, and say we're at the end of an 8-year cycle. How do you think those larger cycles will affect this 4-year cycle?
Good question. So I'm looking at like the Dow Jones being like the oldest cycle, and you measure cycles from peak low to peak low, and if you look at the peak low of the Great Depression, it was 1929, or 32 is the bottom. So realistically, if you're looking at a 100-year cycle, the next 100-year cycle low is 2032. And I find it really interesting because, like, I'm not even trying to get conspiratorial, but there's a lot of people that are like talking about 2029, 2030 being this big pivot point for this new system that they want to unroll with blockchain and all of this stuff. Yes, all of that. So when I see that, and I see, you know, our dollars at the end of the fiat currencies last 80 to 100 years as well. They are on their own cycles. You can go all the way back to Spain. I believe they were the first that had one. They lasted a little over 100 years, some 80, and some a little over 100, but they always top around that point. The dollar is at the end of its point. So the dollar is going to collapse. I mean, everybody knows that. It's inevitable. The question now becomes, what are we going to use? But when I'm looking at the Dow Jones looking like it's about to complete a 100-year cycle, that points us towards like 2030 is like the universal top before we have like a long, big picture bear market. My guess is the next bear market, Great Depression, is a lot worse than the last one because people are too reliant upon everyday things, which is a little tricky. How do you navigate that? I don't know. We do have more infrastructure than ever before, like comparing it to early 1900s and stuff, but I think that we're going to see a lot of things start to unfold around 2030, and that's really where we're going to be able to see, you know, like, is the stock market going to be at a major topping point, the ending of its 100-year cycle? I tend to agree because I don't, you know, like, as much as I love America, like, we're not doing ourselves any favors by the way we're running things, and I don't have any confidence that it sustains itself in the way that it's at.
Cool, I'm going to educate the young man here, give him my opinion. Brilliant young man. My thoughts, when I look at cycles, I look at the 57 years on this planet that I've been here, and I see what the cycles have done to me. And I talk to my grandfather who lived through the Great Depression and what happened then. Let's take a look back at that. The Great Depression, people were jumping out of buildings. People were selling their kids. Families were splitting up and dividing so that they could survive and eat. It wasn't the same thing that just happened recently. And that's why, because we have more tools. Everybody's mad about inflation, about this money printing that went on, but it stopped a Great Depression from happening. Had they had the ability to do that back in the 30s, they could have averted the pain that people went through during the Great Depression. So this quantitative easing and all this crap that they have nowadays that they use, that we're all complaining about, while bums are still standing on the corners with cell phones. People that don't have jobs, people that can't eat, people that, you know, are begging for food. Not what happened in the Great Depression. People that had jobs, that had families, were literally destitute, eating grass. Whole different situation. I don't think we're going to ever see that type of desolation again. It's too easy for us, and there's too much abundance in this world to see something like that. Now, as far as the almighty dollar, I know it's broke. I know it needs to be fixed, but there isn't anything that can replace it. Think about it. It's like, well, the dollar's going to collapse, the dollar's dead. I keep hearing this over and over and over for years and years and years. I've heard this. But it's not going to go anywhere. Is it going to slip? Is it going to lose some of its place? Yes. But it's not going to lose it to the likes of countries that can't stand each other. Like, we're worried about India, China, Russia coming together and doing something together? Really? That's not going to happen, guys. That is not going to happen. The dollar's still going to be around. Now, I don't know if CBDCs come in and take the place of the dollar. That's the only thing that I worry about. CBDCs are the thing that I worry about. I think that that this country is getting smarter, and that people know what they are, and they don't want it, and they're starting to scream about it. So we may avert disaster with the CBDCs, and if that be the case, I think we're on a slow trail back for a long time. New technologies, AI, I'd like to see these guys take us into the 21st century, because the generations before me and my generation, we sat on our asses and didn't take us into the 21st century. We decided that we wanted to live back in the old days. Hey, let's take it back. We keep saying that. Let's just take it back to the good old days of the 50s. Come on, man, let's go back. No, I want these guys to take us into the 21st century. Let's use all this cool stuff to go make life better for everybody. You know, and I think that's where we have to start looking. We have to think abundance. There's more in this world than has ever been before. There's no reason for us to go through a Great Depression anymore. There's no reason for us to see desolation of people anymore. We have to start thinking of abundance and start preaching this to everybody. Because if we don't, we're going to get what we deserve. We're going to get what we look at. When I was I drag raced Harley Davidsons for a while. And when I went to these classes, one of the things that they taught me how to do was if you're on the drag strip and you lose it, don't look at the thing that you're going to run into. Look away. Look down the drag strip. Look at open space. Look at something that's not going to kill you, because if you're focusing and looking at something, you're going to go there. That's where you're going to end up. And I think that that's what we need to do, is we got to start looking into the future and abundance and a good, clean world for everybody to survive and prosper. My opinion. You guys, older guys?
I was going to say we already have a CBDC. It's called the U.S. dollar. But what they're doing to program it and track it and watch it is they're relying on the banks and the credit card companies and private companies that are in bed with the government to track you, where once they program that into the blockchain and they can program that digital dollar to do different things or incentivize different behaviors, then that will hopefully wake people up into looking for an alternative. And the other thing that really throws a wrench in all the cycles, even the 100-year cycle, is the fact that they 20x the money supply just recently. So we don't know how that's going to shake out, or where those dollars are going to run, or how fast your buying power is going to drop. Because we already lost 95% of our buying power since 1913. And then we just lost 95% more. So luckily, we're in crypto. And we're used to loot dropping 95% and then dropping 95% again. And then you know what? And we dropped another 95%. Because why the hell not? So the volatility of crypto is going to prepare us for stuff that other people don't see on the horizon or are not used to financially going forward. So that's all I would add to the cycle conversation.
Does that mean with the guy on the roller coaster, he's all happy and the other guys are freaking out?
Yeah. He's like drinking boba. Yes, Rob.
Well, especially for RG3, I really appreciate that drag racing thing. And you probably know about this then, but I've heard this. Isn't another thing said, like, you're going to crash, to just, like, relax your whole body, too?
Exactly. So, relax, everybody. But yeah, it's the attitude, and you're right. Like they say, the drunk drivers that get in accidents, usually the person that was not drunk dies, and the drunk driver lives because their body was, limp at the time. So there is something to be said about that as a metaphor, like, hey, let's go into this calmly, stop gaslighting everything. That's all we do. We get online and we gaslight everything. It's like, shut up, everybody. Come up with solutions to do something good, and let's speak positive. Let's talk in abundance. Let's do those kinds of things, Forget all this gaslighting and worrying and complaining, and it drives me nuts. Man, I'm a guy that comes from a generation where we worked. We worked and worked and worked, and we got some sleep, we worked and worked and worked again. It was like that's how you go make your money. You work. And I don't see that these generations coming today having that same type of ethic with the tools that they have. It's like, get out there and use these things to do positive stuff. Instead of crying about AI, let's go and make AI work. Let's go and make it do something. Let's go out and talk well about it instead of worrying about all the imaginary horribles. When the calculator came out, I'm going to age myself. When the calculator came out,
Abacus.
it was
Abacus.
Yeah, we had abacuses. We had our fingers. We memorized the times tables. When it came out, they said, don't you dare come to school with a damn calculator. They told us not to come to school with calculators. If you got caught with a calculator at school, you got in trouble. And if you got caught with one in a test, you're done. Now today, my kids go to school with computer calculators because they have to. So they use that tool to make these people smarter. My kids are smarter in math than I ever will be because they had a better tool. And we have better tools today, but we're not utilizing them. And we're not seeing the joy and the good in them. We're looking at all the evils. My mother said, I will never get on the internet. That thing's the devil. I'll never do the internet. Well, now she FaceTimes her grandkids every day, and she's got her Facebook account, and all of her church friends have their groups and stuff. It's just about how you look at the technology and how you utilize it, And it's all about our attitude. And again, as I talked about building communities, we got to have that attitude of abundance versus lack and destruction and everything's going to zero and all that stuff. What you think about, you bring about.
Considering each cycle seems to have a narrative, like DeFi was a narrative, based on the ones you're creating and what you're witnessing as we're coming into this bull market, what are some of the upcoming narratives that you anticipate are really going to be influential? I know it's kind of a guessing game at this point.
I got a few. NFTs for sure, they're going to have their run. Bitcoin, ordinals, Bitcoin NFTs, I think that those are for sure going to be huge. Layer 2s are going to have their own run because ETH sucks and doesn't scale. Liquid staking is going to be a big thing with liquid staking in Ethereum. There's the guys at Pi actually on PulseChain are also creating their own liquid staking protocol. So that's really cool. I'm excited for that. But then aside from that, I also think like the ETF coins, whatever gets an ETF approval, whatever's associated with the ETF coins, those are also going to do really well. But also cross-chain, like that's become a huge focal point. All the projects I'm investing in, all the projects reaching out to me for help, basically they're all launching like cross-chain. And usually they're implementing some sort of like fee to reward the token holders for like the transaction fees. But anything cross-chain, I think that that's super valuable because anybody that's uniting with multiple chains, bringing liquidity to one source or bridging them all over from multiple, they're going to see a lot more adoption because I think that this is the cycle where centralized exchange dominance kind of falls off the map and then we move towards real DeFi. Yep.
Yeah, I'm with it. I think the NFT and the cross-chain thing is really important. Having communities fractured across multiple chains doesn't really do anybody any good.
Yeah.
We've got to fuse them together.
Yep.
We've got to stop being so focused on being maxis on one chain because some chains have a purpose for somebody here and it has an entirely different use case for somebody over here. You can't just put all your eggs in one basket. There's technological use for all of them, and if we can bridge it, I mean, I think that's just a big narrative this year. Yeah.
I think the narrative is you make the narrative. We make the narrative. Let's go make the narrative, not let them make the narrative. And we got to be loud for that. So I want people to get behind what we're all doing, think positive, think in a world of abundance, and go make the narrative yourself. With that, thanks everybody. Appreciate you all coming. If you're hanging out with us for the VIP event, yes, it's going to be fun.
Let's get a picture.
Yeah, we'll get a picture. And
Cool.
if you want to take pictures and stuff, let me patch it up and go.
Wherever in the camera.
Get out those traffic tickets.
Thank you, everybody, for watching the live stream. We appreciate you so much. It's been great. I apologize because I believe the ladies' stream got cut off. That was my bad. I don't know if the camera can even see me. But yeah, we appreciate you. Tell your friends, tell your family. Anyone can tune in anytime. This will be up for a couple weeks until we are in Toronto, Canada. I mean Vancouver. I lied. We're going to be in Vancouver. All right. Thanks, everybody. Bye.
The community is
Oh, that too. We should listen to her.
Yes.
She hates being on camera. But we're going to listen anyways. New York.
The courthouse in
Brooklyn.
The tour team will be there. We've already started collecting RSVPs on the tour website.
Say
we
go to
have
New York.
received
New
over
York.
70 RSVPs
Okay.
already.
I'm going to shut it down.
Until October.
Be there, be square.
So I feel like
October 24th. Woo! Let's go.